be able to do that. It's important because Savannah is a beautiful city. We want to be able to keep it that way. But we recognize that what makes Savannah the most beautiful, we don't own. It is the environment. It is our tree canopy. It's a variety of things. It's our water.
What's really great about Savannah is that its bones are sustainable, right? By that I mean the plan, the infrastructure, the way we've set up, and all of these great trees. We have a fantastic urban forest, and we are really working to kind of supplement that, develop it, grow it. That provides natural cooling, natural energy efficiency for us, if you will. So the more we can take advantage of the park spaces we have, the trees, grow more of that, provide more park space.
Definitely is working with organizations like the Climate Reality Project, Harambe House, or Citizens for Environmental Justice, and Environment Georgia. But most importantly, the citizens right here in Savannah.
We have to do our part, and that starts with a very strong, very intentional plan, bringing partners to the table to make sure that we are moving together lockstep with a common desire in mind.
The direct charge from council, from the mayor, has been that everyone in the community, everyone in Savannah who wants to participate in this plan process and in reaching that goal will have that opportunity. The city of Savannah has been working towards many kind of sustainable energy fronts for a while now. We have started transitioning our fleet to more electric vehicles. We're going to continue to do that. We're trying to put in more electric vehicle charging stations. Just this year, we're really pushing on getting solar panels on many city facilities.
The outreach is well underway. To find out more, simply log on to savannahga.gov/sustainability. For SGTV's City Span, I'm Ken Slatz.
We need our residents to be our eyes and ears.
A must for any city. After all, we live in a city of around 150,000 people. 311 is your easy entry to report non-emergency issues around town, like late garbage pickup, blight, or needed street and sidewalk repairs.
Or if they simply just want to contact the city to ask questions about city services that are provided, or if they want to know more about a special event, 311 is that number that anyone can contact to gain access to that information.
The exciting news is the launch of our brand new application, SAV 311. It's a quick, free download from your app store.
So within the new app, residents will be asked a series of short questions. Specifically, we'll ask for the specific category. And then at that point, we'll also ask them to provide a brief description on exactly what the problem is. Finally, we'll ask the location of the issue. And at that point, there is a map feature that's included in the app that will also assist with them being able to provide us with an address for the location.
Of course, if you don't have the SAV 311 app, you can always just call 311 in Savannah or go online at savannahga.gov/311.
Our goal is to continuously work to improve our mobile app. And so if residents have any suggestions for how we can make things better for them to ensure that they have the best user experience possible, we want to hear from them. Or even if they need help using the app, we want them to contact us at 311 for assistance.
Reporting for SGTV's City Span, I'm Ken Slatz. It's certainly a transformation off Stiles Avenue, just north of Gwinnett Street. We have all heard Savannah's Arena project is the largest financial project in our city's history, funded through the Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or SPLOST, a project funded by the penny tax, mostly by visitors to our city.
I mean, we spent just about a year working on the underground. Everyone kept wondering when we were going to actually start doing something. Here in the past 4 weeks, we've actually built the structure of the building. You can see it, everybody knows what's going on, where the entrance and exits are, and it allows the building to take shape and allows us to start working our way up to the roof.
Which is 90 feet above the ground. The frame is all structural steel. Work progressed around the horn, counterclockwise from event level to overlook level.
So between now and the next 4 weeks, you're going to start to see the roof start to take shape, and roughly about the turn of the year, the roof truss is going across, the metal deck and the exterior facade going on in the building. So it's actually going to become an actual working building.
Certainly major strides accomplished, even through a pandemic. Workers are all subject to COVID rules and regulations, temperature checks, masks, and more. Many of the workers are from here, fulfilling our city's local disadvantaged business enterprise expectations.
So about 25% of the workers on the job site right now today are from Chatham County and have lived here in Chatham County. We are on track for our goals of meeting the 25% DBE requirements. And we're also tracking roughly about 12.6% of the overall contract value as being local DBEs. So we're right on track, and we're right where we thought we'd be right now. 4 weeks ago, we had about 30 people on the job site. Today, we have just at about 100 people on the job site working towards it. And between now and the end of the year, we'll actually jump up another 35 or so. We'll be roughly about 130, 140 people at the turn of the year. We'll continue to build up for the project, and we'll peak out about 250, and we'll peak out 250 roughly about May of 2021. Then we'll drop down, and we'll be continuously operating close to about 200 people all the way till the end.
The end is expected to be first quarter of 2022. It's a roughly 10,000 seat state-of-the-art facility with a wealth of possibilities adjacent to our city's historic district. For SGTV's City Span, I'm Ken Slatz. Chatham County's Savannah, rich in history, bold in beauty. It's time for you to help define our guide for growth. Plan 2040 is our city's long-range roadmap, our vision for advancing together, redefining tomorrow. We need your help, your input, your viewpoints of what's important to you for the growth of our grand city. It's our community-driven vision, Plan 2040. From parks to parking, mobility to mixed-use land development, historic preservation to fair housing, renewable energy to recycling. Now more than ever, we want to hear from you. What's on your mind? It's your city, your chance to help shape Savannah's future. Plan 2040 is our roadmap with goals for growth, our system for developing strategies. Plan 2040 will influence development and policy decisions for the next 2 decades. Plan 2040 addresses 7 major elements as required by the state of Georgia and more. Community goals, needs and opportunities, community work program or short-term work program, economic development, land use, natural and historic resources, quality of life, transportation, and housing. For all the information you need to share your vision, head on over to mpc.compplan2040.org. Questions, comments, email plan2040@thempc.org or call 912-651-1480. You can also stay informed on our social media sites. Your help, your input, your viewpoints. Plan 2040, advancing together, redefining tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Mayor Van Johnson. The City of Savannah and the Trustees Garden Club are working together to create the first ever master plan for Forsyth Park. Council and I are wholeheartedly supportive of this project, but we need your help to make it a success. Now, this plan is not about changing the park. It's about keeping the things we love and identifying ways to improve it. We want all citizens of Savannah to have a seat at the table. There are 3 ways to get involved. 1, a survey, 2, an ideas wall, and 3, an interactive map. Virtual community meetings will be held in the new year to gather feedback on a draft conceptual plan. Go to friendsofforesight.org, friendsofforesight.org, and make your voice heard. Together, We will create a master plan that captures the heartbeat of our park and preserve it as a place for all walks of life to gather. The survey closes on November 22nd, so go to friendsofforesight.org and get involved. Thank you.
What goes down our storm drains goes directly to where we swim, boat, and fish. Having clean rivers and beaches starts on your street. That makes our storm runoff a precious resource. Yes, Savannah has crews that keep our storm drains clean. We also have 6,531 storm drains, with more on the way. We can use a little help. Become a drain warrior. Adopt your neighborhood storm drain. Keep it clear of litter and debris. It takes just a few minutes and can keep your home and neighborhood from flooding. Save a fish. Make a crab happy. Become a shining beacon of hope in your neighborhood. For dry streets, clean water, and a well-drained Savannah, become a drain warrior today.
The coronavirus has us all using more paper towels, wipes, and shop towels than ever before. Please throw them in the trash. These items should never be flushed down the toilet because they can cause unsanitary sewer overflows. A friendly reminder to flush only toilet paper down your toilet.
Anxieties pressing on me, the world, and this council. Lord Jesus, give us your peace. Reassure us that you are with us and we are not alone. Ease our doubts as you did Thomas's. Lord Jesus, give us your peace. Guide our tongues so that we may not seek it where it is not to be found, but we seek it in you. Lord Jesus, in your mighty name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe the city manager is trying to get logged in. And so okay. So if you just give us a.
Hello, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. Melissa Carter, Budget Director. We are going to log off of the Zoom and log back in really quickly. The presentation for today's discussion is taking a long time to download. I think the Zoom is interfering with it. So if you give us a minute, we'll be right back.
Okay, we're waiting for the city manager anyway, so he's trying to get logged on.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Manager, we're waiting on Ms. Carter. She had to log off. She's logging back on. All right, so one moment. And maybe, Mr. Brown, if you would just have Chris change your name so the record is properly reflected. Ladies and gentlemen, those that are watching us on our various platforms, we're just trying to get the right people onto the onto this call. So it's just taking a moment. So if you would please be patient with us, we will be starting momentarily. All right, Miss Carter, you ready?
Yes, Mayor, we are ready.
Okay. All right. Again, good afternoon, everybody. We are ready to proceed. Mr. Brown, and this is a continuation of our budget workshops. We put a pin in it the last time we met, and we said we'll continue it. So, Mr. Brown, it's on to you, sir. You need to unmute, though. Right.
This process, as I recall, we had our first workshop 2 days. Tuesday, we had a short workshop for the council meeting, and then this meeting today. I think Melissa and I are prepared to go over the technical steps necessary as this city attorney so that we can get this budget adopted and also have your concurrence with it. One of the things I wanted to stress is we've done, we hope, a lot of observable work to make this the budget and the capital plan and the policy document support the things you want to get done, both within neighborhood areas, and the districts and citywide. So I'm going to be proposing that we actually adopt 3 documents: the operating budget, you'll hear a little bit more about that today; the capital budget, you'll hear some today, and also we want to talk about that because we are modifying it, especially to one of the points that you made. We're working on that document. Heath Lloyd is and Melissa, and we would like to send that to you on Monday, and it would adjust. I know that you're concerned about districts, as I am, but at the same time, we have, like, for example, basins. So we want to try to address geographic needs as well as district needs. So I think that Melissa and Heath intend to send that to you on Monday, and then we'll be available to answer inquiries on that. I've asked staff to take the policy document and begin to post that. That has to do with poverty, chronic poverty in some of the areas of the city, and all families of poverty. The second issue being the income and equity agenda. Thirdly, and we'll hear from the chief momentarily about crime initiatives. Next is blight, and I can assure you, through, in part driven by your individual requests from citizens who are working on property maintenance issues, vacant, dilapidated houses, as well as even just debris and junk cars, all the things that mar our neighborhoods. And of course, the housing initiative, which the mayor has going, and there's a whole lot of people working on that and intending to submit a report to you. I think in January or February they have their schedule. The final point is that all of our future budgets, and this one, I want it to be based on fact finding, on research, analysis, and community input, so we can have a higher level of confidence that which we submit to you. I'm sure that you have a fair level of confidence. I want it to be very high that what we submit to you has been well documented, based on facts, and something that you can embrace without fear that it's insufficient. So the schedule is that we all cities in Georgia are required to adopt budgets before they're into their fiscal year. Our fiscal year is January 1. A lot of cities have fiscal years that begin on July 1. Some have them that begin on October. Ours is a calendar year, is our fiscal year. We must adopt a new budget. By that time, it has to have the number of readings, at least 2, and then it also must have public hearings. And I believe that Dave Slovak can tell you that's at least 2 public hearings. And those have to, the last 2 have to be, okay, 1 public hearing, but there's a time period in which that has to be done. So that's why we're recommending the calendar that we are. I'd like to take that responsibility for, but in the future, it's always been our practice. Whenever we do have a workshop, we try to make sure everybody is available. So we'll try to do better on that score. I didn't know that some of you might not be able to make it. We will try to poll you so that there's a higher probability that you'll be available for workshops. And so that's an important part of this, to get that calendar down. Now, in terms of the modifications to the budget, let me just list a few very quickly, and then I would suggest that you talk to me or Melissa, between now and next week. One is that we had a request from Parent University to amend the operating contract, contract with them, that would be for $5,000. I recommend that, based on what they're doing in the neighborhoods we're working in right now with you. The second one is the group I've known for a long time, and that's the Neighborhood Improvement Association. They have a track record in helping people with their income tax returns. That's a critical step for people, because residents of our neighborhoods, they need that money that the federal government gives. I think we should, that you can get low income, you can do a tax return, and you can get low income housing tax credit assistance. You can apply for that. at the same time with someone you trust, namely the Neighborhood Improvement Association. So I'm going to recommend that we give an allocation of $50,000 to them because they do a number, and I think Melissa and Kathleen know the exact numbers. We monitor their effectiveness so that they can help people with getting low-income housing tax credits. The thing that they don't do, that a lot of the free tax services do, folks don't need loans, they need cash. So a lot of times if you go to a private, they may be fine to go to, but you don't necessarily need to get a loan and then pay interest on your tax credit. And also with that, I know I'm covering a lot, I really strongly believe that our legislative agenda in the future should be for the state of Georgia to do low-income housing, earned income tax credits for Georgians that corresponds to the earned income tax credits at the federal level. That would increase the direct cash assistance to families. People with higher incomes get tax breaks, tax deductions. People in these income brackets should be getting cash refunds without interest and without paying fees to do those. So I'm going to recommend $50,000 to the Neighborhood Improvement Association. Thirdly, Melissa Carter of the Budget Office had made some allocations for the Civic Center, knowing that booked activities were down. But she's going to make, in order to have resources where needed, she's going to restore a few full-time equivalent positions back to the Civic Center. She could probably explain that better. I think I know some of the details of it. And then another shift. We're doing this just so you're clear. We're keeping the budget integrity intact. We're also, it's just a movement from one fund to the other, moving some of the grants and contract money to the Community Development Fund. That's where they used to be.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes.
I see you.
Yes.
You say, okay.
I see you.
Oh, wait, you say so.
Okay, yes ma'am. Now here's another one that I think is important, and I think the mayor and others have worked on. And this is, Savannah was traditionally for many years the administrative arm for the Department of Labor and their local programs in the coastal area. Each place and each state have workforce development agencies. Ours is called WorkSource Coastal. When I was here, it was called the Coastal Workforce Agency. Now, what does that do? The Department of Labor provides local funds to individuals for training, for education, technical education for workers in this area. And it covered from Savannah. I believe it also covered Effingham. It might have gone up to Bullock, but I know for sure that it went from Chatham to Kingsland.
Yeah, it does.
That's right.
It does.
So thank you, Mayor. So I'm trying to do it quickly here. It was a bit of a challenge because we were responsible for providing, hiring staff and supervising programs for Department of Labor funding for the whole coast. But we did that because of the importance of having accountability, and we could manage those funds for Savannah. And so I think that there is a proposal, and maybe the mayor would say more, but it's to bring this management function back to the city of Savannah. It went from us to this other agency, and we're proposing to come back to us. I think that the jurisdictions up and down the coast concur with this. What does that do for us? It puts us directly into the hands-on management of the funding that goes to people getting job training, educational assistance. At this moment, I don't need to tell you how critical that is. With COVID, the changes in our workforce and the necessity of having our neighborhoods have access to job training services, because as we've said, it's great to get jobs in the industrial parts, but that's not great for us unless our workers connect to this economy. That's what workforce will do. I believe that Because us serving as the management and fiduciary agency is a good move. We have to be cautious. I think we could manage it. We did manage it, so we didn't lose any money on this deal. We're not subsidizing the other cities. That is a risk. We also used to take on, you might call it the grant risk. Some of you have all been in this type of process. You know that when you accept grant funds, there's a risk involved. I believe that the new agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, that new agreement helps make sure that we're not the sole bearer of the risk, and that therefore we can manage this for the benefit of the region and for the benefit of ourselves, and to do that from Savannah, but with the full attention given to the other jurisdictions and their workforce needs in the other counties that would be within the agency. Mr. Mayor, did you want to add anything to that?
I can very briefly. Many of you familiar with Coastal Workforce Services. They have partnered with us. Matter of fact, Savannah Impact at one point, the Work Ventures program, much of that was funded through our Coastal Workforce Services. The last council, and without getting too much into details, I think we were a little misled, but essentially the function was transferred from us to the Coastal Regional Board, and it has not worked out. The relationship has not worked out. We managed it better, and so we've been negotiating. I'm on the chief elected officials board for the organization, and so we were requested to consider taking it back because it worked a whole lot better for us. It puts us literally in not only the driver's seat of those federal funds as works to workforce and training. Is an excellent opportunity. They're already based in Savannah, and we have calculated that it will cost us, they will pay, they come with money, so they're basically paying their expenses. So we calculated what it would cost for us to be able to manage it here, so it will be cost neutral. But the access, I think, is important, and I think we'd rather be under the city's jurisdiction. So the chief elected officials meet next week. We're expecting to ratify a request from the chief elected officials to the city of Savannah to take it back effective December the 31st. And then we'll put that on the agenda for you all to consider doing that by the 31st of December. And then they will work on the actual management agreement, which would have to come back to us as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just add one or two more things. We all are distressed by seeing the confusion at the federal level, but I'm confident that the Department of Labor and the Secretary of the Treasury, they've already said, regardless of who's going to be the secretaries of those agencies, they're going to change their focus. If Janet Brooklyn becomes the Treasury Secretary, she has the same agenda that we are looking at, which is to deal with chronic poverty and income inequity, and the need to have our economy be based with the Department of Labor working on the job skills of people in our communities, and that's the way to drive the Department of Labor. So that, I think that would be hopefully good timing.
And we're very hopeful, the anticipated Biden administration, we have relationships there, and their strategic priorities align with ours. So we believe that we'll have the strategic relationships for that federal money to come through. And again, as the administrative sorts of those through Coastal Workforce, I think that's a win-win for us in terms of addressing the things that we're trying to address.
We had to work through the problems of running an agency like this, but I think it's well worth it, and we can hopefully use the skills that we had. Next, moving on, because you have, I want to hear from the additional, the chief and others. We will hear something on, and we will make an adjustment to get started with, and I would recommend not waiting until January, but as we adopt the budget, we would be even now, and I think the chief is ready to do the violence interruption, negative-based interventions, and reductions of violence. We will hear from him on that. And finally, I just have to reiterate, because the folks in our utility operations are insisting on it, that a delayed water and sewer rate increase is not an avoided or ignored rate increase. I just insisted that as I came on, I said, you know, we're going to avoid layoffs, we're going to try to avoid furloughs and hardships, but I don't think it's not acceptable to raise especially water and sewer rates and garbage fees. Now, there will be others, and I think Melissa can tell you those, that are not harming individuals. They're directed towards businesses, many of whom right at this moment are actually very vibrant. We see the level of construction that continues even right now. So, but we will not, this budget does not include a water, a sewer, I'm talking about water operations, water and sewer operations, and solid waste. But we will revisit it again in the first quarter, and then we will visit it more formally in July or whoever's here at that time. And then, because it's the old cliche, pay me now or pay me later, because we have to keep this system in good shape for the future. So we, even with some staff resistance, I'm saying let's don't raise these rates now, but we will revisit them. The workshops that we had were on the 18th and 19th. We had one on the 24th. We're having one today. I'm going to recommend that you get your questions in to me, to Melissa, and then for next week we will hopefully be ready for this item to be on the budget. On the agenda yet again. I believe for first reading continue, and then is that correct, Mr. Lovett?
Second reading.
Second reading. Okay. And then we would, so that the last date for the public hearing and approval would be December the 18th. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, sir.
So, and I just want to re-stress once again, you will see, and you begin to see this web posted, that the policy document for those issues, that we will move ahead with those actions that I've told you. So please look at that. The other thing I've asked staff to do, because there's been criticism, and rightly so, we must make use of every avenue, social media, whatever the avenue is, to get the word out about our poverty reduction initiatives, making connections with families in poverty and workers, with low-wage jobs. So we have to come up with new ways to communicate with families and new ways to communicate with agencies, even emerging agencies who are interested and capable of serving those objectives that obviously we have housing agencies now that are pretty well mature, but now we need to have additional agencies in years of income, low-income housing tax credits, assistance with child care, assistance with getting into the banking system, all the things that are necessary to have families emerge from poverty. So you will begin to see those. If you have ideas with that, please let me know. And I do thank you. This, as always, this is a whole lot to digest, but I think that I feel confident that we can, and you are, and I stand ready next week even to address your concerns on an individual basis to see how your district or neighborhoods are being affected, and that you can have confidence that we are readjusting the direction of this city organization. With that, Mr. Mayor, unless you had other questions, I'll turn it back over to you and Melissa.
Thank you. And there are a couple of questions before we get started. I want to throw one out. A couple of years ago, we talked about, and I guess this is just a homework assignment, about the city considering to change our fiscal year to July 1st to June 30th. Only because obviously it gives us a much more realistic determination about what the digest is looking like. So, doesn't require any response now, but I just want to make sure that, that a calendar year still works for us. If there's a more effective way, I remember the county did it some years ago to be more in sync with the millage. That might be something that we could look forward to if that's something you all think between you, Mr. Manager, the budget director, and CFO determine that might be something that might be worthwhile to do. I saw Alderwoman Wilder Bryan, Alderwoman Blakely, Alderwoman Shabazz, and then we'll get started.
Good evening, everybody. I just have one question for Ms. Carter and the city manager. I'm just wanting to know where you found $55,000 to give to neighborhood services and Parent University.
Melissa come in as well. Because of the nature of the social services and economic development, we have a small contingency in that area. And I think, I'm not sure that this will drain that, but it's, because otherwise if we don't have that, then you all come to us with little agencies who you identify, we find out that they are legitimate. Now I want to be clear, I feel that any money to an agency that missed the deadline, they have to have, if you didn't get your homework done, you have to have a pretty good excuse other than the dog ate it. So in this case, I think there's some changes that they did not meet the deadline, but that doesn't mean they haven't done good service, and that we should find money in this contingency to help them. Melissa?
So just one other thing before that. I'm aware with neighborhood services, I believe I sent an email that she sent to me about the deadline. I know they do good services, but I'm just trying to find out what exactly, never heard of a contingency source before. This is the first time I've heard that. And so where do we get this contingency money from? What is that?
Just a very small one, Melissa.
Mayor and Council, you have your budget documents with you. There's a contingency line in your budget document that shows the proposed budget. I'm gonna find that
What page is that?
I'm turning to it. Just hold on a minute.
I can wait. You can Melissa, don't let that, Ms. Carter, don't let that hold you up. You can just show me where that is later after your presentation.
Well, for the public that's also watching, I really want to announce the page. The page number is 667 in your proposed budget document. It's also, that document is available online at savannahga.gov/budget.
You said 60.
Contingency, page 67.
That's $1 million.
Yes, that is for the full operating year. And it is for unforeseen expenses that rise during the operating year. So this is not something that we would like to spend down at the beginning of the year, because it needs to last us throughout the full operating year, especially with the economic downturn that we are in the midst of. However, just as Michael mentioned, we did receive these requests for adjustments to the proposed spending plan. We're communicating these requests. It is the council's decision and direction back to the manager and staff on whether we allocate these additional funds. And just for clarity, Michael mentioned that it was $5,000 for Parent University. I just want to clarify for the record, $5,000 is allocated in the proposed spending plan under the Community Partnerships Program. What has been requested is an additional $20,000 for a total of $25,000. So it's an additional $20,000 that we are bringing that back to the council, as that is a change or an adjustment that is not in your budget proposal before you.
That
Okay.
is, that's also it's also a matched. It's matched 100% as well.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to say that I'm glad that the neighborhood services, they do a great job, was able to get some money. So thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't come from the other budgeting process, and I wanted to know what the contingency and where that money came from. So thank you so much.
And if I could, I want there to be confidence that, we're not playing games with a slush fund here. I believe that, well, I support this because we said we're most concerned about families in poverty. What's the best way to help them do that? Is to get them eligible for earned income tax credits, even though the agency did not meet the deadline. And for that, they must apologize and change their ways, but that we still need to get that type of assistance to families. So I think that's as urgent of a need as we have, and is a valid reason to spend some money from the contingency. Thank you.
No, just for the record, I'm not suggesting that they not get the money because I have a referral based on that. She sent a letter to me and I forwarded it to Ms. Reed. I just wanted to know for clarification what this contingency fund was about. And so thank you for that explanation, Ms. Carter, thank you.
just for the benefit of everybody watching, every year we leave millions and millions of federal dollars on the table that could address family issues because people that are eligible for the earned income tax credit do not apply for them. And so NIA does a full court press. This money does not go to the city of Savannah. It's helping people apply to get that money into their households that can do a variety of things for them. And sometimes the money is significant. So this is helping them to help self-sufficiency, which is a big part of Step Up Savannah and certainly a big part of NIA. Alderwoman Blakely.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. My questions were answered in the discussion beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Shabazz.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. In reference to the conversation for Workforce Coastal, Mr. Mayor or City Manager, how much money are we talking about? I know that this was working for the City of Savannah greatly in the past administrations. Do we know how much funds as of now that's in the fund?
Well, let me start. Again, right now, it's the administrative cost for the organization takes care of itself. When we had it before, it was costing about 170,000 or so, Ms. Carter, somewhere in there. But what was happening was that, you know, it cost us. It did cost us a little bit more. They moved to the Coastal Regional Center, and it's costing them $400,000 a year. This is money for the services that they're not getting. I asked staff to give me a realistic expectation of how much would it cost for us to be able to provide the service. And essentially, Coastal Workforce will be paying us. So I think we're at a little closer to about $325. Ms. Carter, how much was it?
So there are indirect costs in terms of support and overhead costs that are around about 400,000. Those are costs that will be reimbursed to the city because they are all grant funded and programmatic support costs. It's just that the city will need to float those funds up front to provide those services and support, and then reimburse once the federal dollars come through when we do an annual reconciliation.
Yes, I just want to say that I support Workforce Coastal and look forward to the City of Savannah management of Workforce Coastal. Thank you.
Thank you. I was really sorry that it went away, and Alderwoman Shabazz, you remember, you know, unfortunately, some of the reasons we were told were not the reasons. And, you know, we're responsible for doing this for this whole region. We have to make sure in Coastal Workforce, because they have people working in those regions, to make sure that areas like Glenn County and McIntosh County are getting the services from those federal sources as well. But the fact is, we're just way better at managing them. They have needs. They're located in Savannah. They have IT needs, they have personnel needs, they have payroll needs, and we're just way better at being able to address those needs. So those positions will add some FTEs to our payroll, but again, those are positions that are fully reimbursed by the federal government.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you acknowledged that an agency didn't get their application in time. Is that where the allocations for NIA?
They missed the deadline. And
right.
So we looked at their situation and nevertheless recommend that they get funded.
Right. And I'm fine with that. One of the things I want to acknowledge along the lines of what I stated during the last budget session, and Ms. Carter and I, as well as Ms. Young and Ms. Reed, have had conversations about purchasing units or purchasing services. When we look at how an agency can miss a deadline and take into account that that is an agency that provides an important and essential service to our community, and if they miss deadline and don't receive funding, we thereby are hurting the community because of an administrative mishap or oversight on behalf of the leadership or the staff. And so I wanted to just make the point where I ask that we give consideration to revisiting how we make these allocations, and that we essentially seek to fund agencies through purchasing services from them, as opposed to having them compete in a laborious grant process, inclusive of deadlines. Many of these nonprofit executives are one woman and one man shows. They do it all. And to be tasked and labored with these demands on behalf of our processes, I think we can add a little more compassion to the process if we were to revisit how we make these allocations to these organizations we consider to have essential services. Thank you so much.
We will, as we will get stronger at helping them get stronger, because you're only as good as your agencies, and your agencies have to have the resources and the knowledge, as you well know. We'll help them with that, but we also have to hold them accountable, and and so I think I hear what you're saying, and we will, let's try to make it as streamlined and untroublesome as possible, but yet not get in trouble with HUD or with the Department of Labor or the other agency, CDBG type funds. So we will see more on that, the implementation of your recommendation, I think, in the next 30 days, certainly before the next cycle.
Thank you, Alderman Lanier. Thank you, Alderman Lanier.
Yes, along the line of those comments, NIA is a wonderful organization, and the work they have done in the past and working with these low wealth communities and helping people acquire the earned income tax credit and the child credits. There are numbers out there that they can prove the amount of funds that they have brought, the millions of dollars, into the local economy. So they're a vital organization. Now, I like to say that there's also documentation out there and research showing that Black nonprofits, or it's very difficult for them to get equitable funding, but these are the nonprofits that are actually closest to the problems in these communities. And we end up lots of time taking care of these situations out of our pocket. We kind of afford them, and these are our family, sisters, brothers, neighbors, and we do that. So I would like to see us extend some capacity building training as we have these neighborhood leadership academies. We already talked about training people to be able to understand how to negotiate for community benefits, but this is another capacity area. They missed that deadline, and like Alderman Gibson Carter said, these people are really out here doing the work, but they can't compete with these nonprofits who traditionally get this money, and then they come to the communities and people don't really want to work with them because they don't know these people. But we need all these agencies. But my point is, let's extend or offer some training as we train residents and neighborhoods, so that we could have capacity building for these nonprofits. Some of them are new, some of them have been around struggling for a while, but I think we can help them because their services are much needed in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, why don't you, consistent with the things we've said then before we get into the next funding cycle, start preparing some options for it to look at in terms of how we address this issue.
I was well stated, Ms. Mayor, if I could, I was well stated. That's what I should have said. I tried to keep it brief. The capacity building issue is critical, so that they don't, it's not burdensome, but it's accountable and it's community-based and direct. So I hear that, and I think Taffany and other members of our organization hear that. Now, be patient, because as we all know, capacity building is a difficult task for every one of us, but I think we should do that make a commitment and implement that prior to the next funding cycles to the best of our ability.
Thank you. And before we go, Mr. Palumbo, there's a guy down the bottom, Michael, who looks just like you. But anyway, go ahead, Mr. Palumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supportive of these initiatives, especially considering for the short time that we have them, the experience that we have from our city manager to implement that and recommend these. Ordinarily, I would not support, amendments to the budget like this later, kind of in the fourth quarter. But considering where we're at and where many of the nonprofit organizations are in 2020, they do need more support. They haven't been able to raise funds like they usually have through events or different outreach. So I'm supportive of those, but I also want to see fairness to the other applicants that are out there as well, including organizations like Park Place Outreach, which reached out to the council. They suffered a $10,000 reduction this year. And I want to make sure that this youth shelter, that we remedy that before we move forward with new applicants and adding them on to the process.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a lot of heavy lifting to go. Mr. Manager, if Ms. Carter can move on, I think he's going to join his space. So Ms. Carter.
Just some of the comments that were made thus far, I just want to clarify and add one more thing. I think Michael did a wonderful job with outlining some of the proposed revisions that we have so far throughout our deliberations. But to Alderwoman Lanier's point, I want to remind the council that Carrie Reed gave a presentation during the budget workshop, and she outlined what the plan of approach was for those smaller nonprofit agencies and how to, provide some education and training to them for them to start building some capacity. And definitely, Alderwoman Keisha Gibson Carter's comments were also taken in that presentation. And I know Taffy and I have had some discussion after the November 18th and 19th budget workshop to start talking about how do we incorporate some of those purchase services and units. And so, yes, we definitely have that on our to-do list. In addition, I didn't actually tell Michael until just in time for this meeting, but also, Michael, we have one more request that has come in from the Housing Task Force. And that request was to consider a $500,000 investment in 2021 to the Savannah Affordable Housing Trust Fund. As you've all heard before, $500,000 city investment can have the capacity to leverage $2 million in private housing investment. I think Martin Freddie has drilled that into my head every time he gives a presentation. So just for the council's awareness, that request has come in after we published the proposed budget, but we do already have in the proposed budget plan a $500,000 allocation. So that would not be a change. It would just be council's approval of that $500,000 investment.
And this is from the Housing Task Force that the council has appointed. They're obviously seeing some opportunities. So that's the recommendation from our task force. Ms. Blakely.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. I am just very concerned about us giving that $500,000 to the Housing Task Force. Don't they have the $10 million?
No, it's not the Housing Task Force. It's to our Housing Affordability Fund. So it's not to the task force. It's to the fund that we already have.
That's what Ms. Carter just said.
No, I said for clarity, the Housing Task Force submitted a request for council to consider making an investment of $500,000. They were supporting the additional investment because it supports the work that they're doing. But this would be our normal annually allocated housing trust fund contribution that we make. In previous years, it's been $150,000 annually. In the 2021 proposed spending plan, there is a $500,000 annual contribution.
Okay, Ms. Carter, how does that align with the $10 million that Martin Freddie already have for housing? So why are we giving them an additional $500,000? I know you said we give them, hold on, Mayor Johnson, let me ask her. I know you said that we normally give them
150,000? Why are we giving them 500,000?
So all of these programs work in tandem together. The $10 million allocation that you're speaking of is in our SPLOS program, and that is to do the 1K and 10 initiative that we also spoke about during the council retreat under the housing snapshot of the Advancing Communities Together segment. That was where we talked about what we could do to leverage housing opportunities and housing strategies to address our housing issues and inequity that we have within our jurisdiction. So the $10 million
housing.
Well, there are many different programs. The 10 million is for a blighted property acquisition and development. So we're going to, we have a process by which we're going to target our most blighted areas and no or low tax revenue producing housing areas. We need to revitalize our neighborhoods. This $10 million investment over the next 6 years is going to help us leverage that. And there were different programs and strategies that Martin outlined during the budget workshop. Some of those would be the use of our eminent domain areas. They might also be the use of us working with urban developers to try to provide urban developers some opportunity. And also, it also has a goal to be able to provide low and affordable housing stock, to increase that housing stock within our jurisdiction. The affordable, okay,
go ahead.
Give me a minute. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was already in place, and that's an annual, and that's a much larger partnership. That is an investment into the Housing Trust Fund that then will leverage private investment to match that and to grow that. And so if we can, what Martin Freddie has taught me, for one, is that if we can be able to allocate 500,000 into that trust fund, then we can use that to leverage $2 million in private investment that then will provide additional low and moderate affordable housing for our jurisdiction.
Okay, is that the organization where each one of us appointed or gave the name of an individual from our area to be a part of this organization?
Yes, it's not an organization. It's a
task force.
The task force would really a specific start date and really a sunset date. What date will end? I just want to make sure that you recognize that when you say we're giving them, we're not giving them, we're giving us. This is our task force that's recommending that we invest this money in us. The Housing Authority, Housing Affordability Fund is our fund to help leverage affordable housing. The other thing that's important is when you talk about the money for SPLOS, again, not giving them SPLOS, it's SPLOS money to be used by us for our needs to make sure that people have affordable housing. So it's not an agency or another agency that we're supporting. This is really investing in the things that we said were priority.
Mayor Johnson, I'm just concerned because, let me finish. I'm just concerned because I've spoken to a particular individual that is on this task force, and he stated to me that he's not even allowed to really give input like he should. They have a meeting and then they present, I guess the committees or whatever, whatever they decide that they're going to do, they present it to these particular individuals, some of the ones that we asked to be a part of this, and they're not really giving real input into what is needed in as far as low income housing is concerned. So, and I would like to know who are the 37 members that are part outside of the ones that we asked to be a part of this. Who is the members of this particular?
I'll remind you, and I'll ask staff to forward it. We had a press conference and we sent you the names of all members of the Housing Savannah Task Force. We sent each council member all of the names, their affiliations, and we also posted that as well. And so it's very clear who they are.
Could you please resend it, because I don't remember who the names are on that.
Sure.
Mayor, could I?
One second, Ms. Brown.
Yes, sir.
So who those individuals are. Many of them are our city staff as well. And so we have those names. Now, I do know, because actually they are meeting at this moment, that Housing Savannah Task Force works on a committee system. And so the committees work on specific areas of that, and then they come back as a group, and then they discuss it as a group. So I will pass your concerns on to, and I would suggest that the person that you're referring to talks to the chairs of the committee, Israel Smalls and Brent Grant, about their concerns. Because I've seen people communicating, and I have not heard anything from anybody on there saying that they were not able to give input. So I would suggest.
I will make sure that he gives you the input that he's given me.
Please.
And let me ask you this. I'm told, because like I said, I've not seen the list, that a lot of the individual, are there developers and builders and what have you on this particular task force?
There are real estate people on there, there are developers, there are a little bit of everybody on there. When you talk about housing, because housing is so multifaceted, it has to involve the whole diaspora, if you will, of housing. And so, yes, there are people on there represented from every area associated with housing.
Who picked those particular individuals? Because we only put one person at a time. So who are the other, how did those other individuals get involved?
They were recommended by Mr. Freddie and Ms. Young, and I appointed them.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If there's someone in the community that we know, aside from that one individual that we were allowed to put on this particular task force, how do we go about letting them become, or asking them to be a part of this? How do they go about being a part of it?
Well, at this point, the committee has been appointed. They have been meeting. They continue to meet, so there will not be an opportunity for others to be appointed. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that the community was represented, which is why council members were asked to recommend someone to serve from their community to serve on that task force, so that the community is represented. So
I'm speaking of a business person, a builder, a developer, or something to that effect.
At this point, the Housing Task Force has been appointed. They are working, and so there are no opportunities to do that. Within the first quarter, I believe, of next year, the Housing Task Force will bring to council a draft report with recommendations, and at that point, it becomes our document to amend and to approve as we see fit.
Mayor, and I would say to Alderman Blakely, if I could, I was on that committee. I think I've said that. I was a chair of one of them. I think I really would stress that even though there's the committee, it's not ironclad. I would ask you if you have someone, because I had someone on my committee who had a specific proposal, and I said, look, let's document it, and then we'll make sure that that's included in the report. Whatever they are, if they own apartments, if they own rental housing, if they have Section 8. I think because of COVID, we can't blame it for everything, but I believe that in the last 9 months, we ordinarily would have tours, we would have financial briefings to show that how housing finance works. At best, we're 5 cents on the dollar, maybe 10. Secondly, when I left, I thought we would be up to say maybe $3 or $5 million in city contributions toward affordable housing. How does that work? Usually, let's say a house is $150,000 a unit. Well, the market will only support maybe $120,000. So then you need to close the gap. That's where our funds come in. And so I think we need to maybe do a quick report to you to show you how typical housing finance works and how we try to leverage our 5 cents or 10 cents on the dollar, and how, yes, you will have private developers, home builders, you have nonprofits like CHSA and Mercy Housing. We need to make sure that we tell you and you get input into that, so you know. I mean, we have, I would estimate 500 million at least to $1 billion in housing need in this community, and I think that the committee will find that. So if you have someone who has an idea or wants to invest, get that to me. I'll make sure that the committee gets it, and that we do a simple version, because housing finance is one of the most complicated issues that we'll face. It's as expensive or more than drainage, but it's not as straightforward because you have all these bankers, savings and loans. I'm going to commit to, within a month, to send a simple report that says, what is the total amount of housing finance, and then how much does it usually cost to fund an affordable unit? That way you can hopefully have more confidence and input into this housing component. It's not the task force driving our contribution, it's the mayor and aldermen through our budget and capital process. And I would make it equivalent to the trees. I thought we would be at the point of having a tree inventory where we would have a net increase, maybe even 500,000 or $1 million a year. That also, I'm not saying it went by the wayside, but other financial exigencies, or whatever the term is, took over. And so I think the housing trust fund, the housing fund, our housing contribution, let us explain that, and then what the gap is on affordable units. So we'll do that, and I propose to do that in the next 30 days. And if anybody has a concern or thinks it's not working, please send me a communication, and I'll make sure that the chairs of the task force, Israel and Small and Bryn Grant, and the members of the committee learn of that proposal.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that it is equitable and it's fair.
Sure. Thank you. And that's why we made sure all council members had the opportunity to make sure we had folks appointed. But
we appointed a Mayor Johnson, but we only had one person appointed, and 37 people is on this particular committee. And I just, when you said that we received that, I might have overlooked it.
I mean, again,
if I can get it again, I would appreciate it.
I will resend it because again, it's been out, it's been publicized widely. And if you take the city staff out from the 37, from 9, again, it's still a very small number of people. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's fine. Alderman Lanier, and then if we're going to get finished today, we're going to have to move on. Alderman Lanier.
Yes, I think we're doing an adequate job on the revenue part for housing. We're making the right moves. We got the SPLOST money. Right now we're moving 500,000, but I'm concerned more about the allocations and as we start the building or the investment process. Now, I said before that because in the first district, we have some land and we have the need and we have a huge amount of vacancies. And so a lot of these houses will be coming to the first district because the need is so great. But I'm so concerned about, like Alderwoman Blakely said, the equity of it. Because we have an opportunity zone, a federal opportunity zone in the first district, and because it's going to give investors and developers opportunity, tax breaks on their capital gains, it's attractive. But my job is to make sure that my people are not forcefully displaced. And as a council, based on the Jobs Act legislation, it was left up to local governments to put policies in place to make sure that people aren't displaced, poor people aren't pushed out of their neighborhoods because of this opportunity. So we as a council right now need to put something on place how we allocate these dollars and that program. I'm not confident in that program because I have a list right now on my desk of 9 Black contractors who were a part of the city's housing program back in the early 2000s. And these guys are telling me they were pushed out. And I've been hearing this through the years because we've been working together. They were pushed out of the program. And so I spoke to Chief Young, and she asked me to have them get in contact with her so they could sit and reason together and come up with a way that these contractors could get back into the program where they could make a contribution and make money on this. And I'm going to forward these names to her. None of these contractors are on that housing task force. Now, the people who are on there, especially these chairs and the people who have the most influence, I doubt if they even live in the city or have a sensitivity to low wealth and poor people. But I have that. I live here, and I'm going to fight to make sure that these allocations in these houses are equitably done. The $125,000 houses are not affordable in these areas. And in the West Savannah area, a lot of these city houses have been foreclosed and they sit empty. So we need to look at this program and what are we doing? We're putting these people in these houses and they're not staying in these houses. So we do have some issues that we have to straighten out. And we're going to do a lot of building, but we also have to do a lot of rehab, and we have eminent domain. Just like someone sat down and devised the eminent domain law and thought it would be good to just take this property, it would be easier. Somebody could sit down and figure out how we could make sure that one of those heirs have an opportunity to pay the back taxes and a fine and have a plan to keep that property in these houses. And part of our legislative agenda need to be that language that we address that. So we are also discussing community benefits, and anytime a large scale development is going to come to these neighborhoods, it needs to bring some kind of community benefits. And that needs to be a part of what we're doing. So right now I'm fine with how we are generating this income, this money for housing, because the need is there, but I'm not comfortable in how we are going to dispatch this program and allocate these funds and who's involved in making these decisions over these people. But right now, we'll be watching when that report come in. We'll digest it and we'll massage it and get into it and figure out if this is an equitable policy. So I needed to say this right now because this is what I'm looking at. And right now I am in support of putting all the funds in place. But when it comes time to allocate these funds and who's making this money, some people have already come to West Savannah and sat down with the leadership a few years ago and wanted to know how they could make money in West Savannah. We told them we're not about making money off of the housing. We're about making sure our people have a place, affordable place to stay. And we also, and so they didn't feel like they wanted to do business with us. There was no business to do. So now they sit on the Chatham Housing Coalition, those same people. So I'm concerned about that. And so I just needed to say this. So as we move forward, let's put the money in place. But I think we have to take a closer look at the programs and how we're going to dispatch these funds and how we're going to develop these neighborhoods with equitable outcomes.
Thank you. Let me remind you all again, and for purposes of those that are watching, that the purpose of a housing plan strictly is strategy and policy, nothing to do with allocation. Ultimately, the council decides allocation. And we need to make that clear because I want to make sure that everybody is clear about that, because on that end, when we adopt the Housing Savannah plan, it becomes the council's plan, which is why the committee only works and they research and they develop and they recommend. So the equity piece, if it's not observed within the recommendations, certainly that's our responsibility to be able to provide that. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear about what the role of the group is. It is a policy document. It's not an implementation document. We have the opportunity to determine how and where and all of those things as they occur. And just to Alderwoman Lanier's point, again, the issue has often just been state-led about cloudy title. It's not an issue about one of the heirs. It's the issue that the state law says you have to have all of the heirs. And that has been a big issue for the West Savannah and the West Side communities. It's not that you didn't have someone that wanted to take care of it. It was the fact that they could not do anything about it because state law forbid them from being able to do that. And so we've had that on our legislative agenda before. It went nowhere, probably because a very strong housing lobby was against it. We can continue to put that, but in the meantime, we have to do something about those dilapidated houses. But heretofore, again, we know that folks are working on a policy. The policy will come to us, and then ultimately we adopt the policy. We determine what happens from there. Alderwoman Gibson Carter, and I guess we won't get into our presentations today. Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
Thank you so much, and my apologies, but there's never enough time, or we can never discount the time that we invest in the city of Savannah. It's time well spent for me. And to that point, I think for us, Mayor Johnson, because oftentimes a lot of these pieces are presented to us as these meetings are taking place. If there was an opportunity for us to have a discussion outside of a quorum as it relates to these allocations and these requests, particularly those that exceed $100,000 up to almost $500,000, it would foster a better opportunity for us to have trust as well as move the meetings a little bit faster if we can talk about these things ahead of time. My questions are consistent with pieces related to which you acknowledge as policy initiatives and strategy. Essentially, these are the themes of this group, this housing task force. So my question is, how much closer does this $500,000 actually bring us to seeing affordable housing realized, right? So to that point, the next question is for Ms. Carter, in receipt of this request for $500,000, was there a budget proposal submitted?
No, as I said before, this allocation of $500,000 was originally requested by our housing director, Martin Freddie, during our budget development process. So, as you are aware, we spend around 9 months working with our user departments and operating programs to see what their budgetary needs are for the upcoming budget. So this was initially requested by Martin Freddie to increase our annual recurring allocation that is normally $150,000 to $500,000. It was posed as a part of his request as an attempt to re-energize and interject an influx of cash, again, because we are also launching our 1K and 10 housing initiative or blighted property and redevelopment initiative. And so he wanted that to be considered for 2021. Recently, I believe today or yesterday, the housing task force that was set by the council or mayor and council, they submitted an email to myself, and I'm not sure if Michael had a chance to see it yet, that says, hey, we would like the council to consider a $500,000 annual investment, not knowing that it was already included in our proposed spending plan based on Martin Freddie's initial request as the program manager.
Right. Nonetheless, the request still came. So my question still remains, because if we were to get a request from, just take in, for example, the number of nonprofits who petition the city of Savannah for funds, they too have to submit a budget in tandem to their requests, correct? So we need not hold others to a higher standard if we ourselves cannot follow through. So $500,000, is it simply just to, as you stated before, use as resources that we're going to leverage to acquire more dollars? Okay.
Yes, and the estimate of leveraging is $2 million.
Okay, and again, it's just the opportunity, and I know you took some time previous to our budget hearings to meet with us, and you can't think of everything, but I think having conversations about big pieces like this that raises our brow certainly lends itself to a conversation. And to that point, Mayor Johnson, I think if we had more communication and information from the various task force, I don't know how many we have now, but I can appreciate a quarterly report, but I would imagine these groups have formalized and organized themselves to where they have a leader, a secretary, or a note taker. If there could be a process by which the council receives a monthly update, it doesn't have to be anything particularly laborious, but if they could submit to us monthly a status report as to what these task forces are doing, so when the information comes to us, it's better received and we have more confidence where these pieces are concerned.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please.
Let me suggest in addition to that report, I want to make COVID, I think, I would have done this. I would have done a mobile workshop on at least 3 projects so that you could understand where does our money fit in, where do the individual builders, minority builders. The projects I would suggest that we do are first, Kyler Brownville, because that was really the first, and we had money from Mercy Housing. Dorothy Pelote got money from the state legislature. We had low-income housing tax credits. We had historic rehabilitation tax credits. I think you might, then we did Charity Hospital, we did Florence Street School, we did the row houses, and then we did scattered individual houses. If we were to take you, if it's in your district or not, we would do that project. I would propose that we do Sustainable Fellwood, that we do the project at Ashley Midtown. I really call it Benjamin Van Clark, because that consisted of taking the old garden homes and replacing them and then doing about 70 units. If we were to, and then to do the project on Pennsylvania Avenue. That way we'd put it up on a board, be COVID safe, and then you could say, this is exactly where the money goes. This is how the money came in, and this is how the money went for the rehabilitation. It would show our piece, which is usually, X. It's not even the majority. It's probably 20% at most. That way you could see how the macro level housing finance works and how each individual unit is financed. I hope then you'd have more confidence as this group comes forward with its recommendations, how we allocate our contribution towards this larger pot, and then we can make sure that it's done equitably. It can't be done by pushing people out. That's prohibited by our own rules and federal rules. And then you could then make sure you could ask more detailed questions. So I'm going to ask staff to set those up. Got to be separate, got to be COVID safe, but to put up the board, at Kyler Brownville, and then to show, here's how the money came in, here's how the money went out, here's how much each unit costs. So this is how it's managed today, and this is how much they're paying in rents. It's not all poor people. I'll be blunt. It's mixed income, it's ownership, it's rental. It's actually, in some cases, public housing that's within that project. You just don't know who it is. And that's good. Nobody's living in public housing, but they're getting housing subsidies, whether that's Section 8 vouchers or whatever the source is. I think we have to show you how it works and make sure that you understand that. Mr. Mayor, I would propose that at least hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days, we could arrange those tours and briefings so each of the new members of council, they don't have to accept what happened in the past, but then they could see how those projects fit together financially, who gets the benefit, what do they cost, and how did they work?
Sure, certainly. Thank you. Ms. City Manager, Ms. Cardi, are we ready to proceed?
So along our Advancing Communities Together segment, we do have police and fire on tap today. We'd like to proceed in the sake of time to try to move forward through police with Chief Mentor. If we have time and time allows, we have Assistant Chief LZ Kitchens, our Assistant Fire Chief, to present on fire program as proposed in the 2021 spending plan. At this time, I'm going to share my screen, moderator, and Chief Mentor, if you would like to proceed, I will be advancing your slides.
All right, thank you, Ms. Carter, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go through our police department budget proposals. I'll start with our current performance highlights. You'll see a couple of things on there. The first thing has to do with crime reporting. Some of you may be aware of some of the really advances we made in the area of crime reporting, especially some of these as they actually are in line with the COVID-19 and us not being able to, or cutting back on going out and having face-to-face, person-to-person time. We opened our remote report center, and then we also, with the support of Mayor and Council, were able to hire what we call community service officers. To date, we've taken over 3,000 reports, 500 online, just over 500 at the front desk, and over 550 have been taken by the community service officers, and almost 1,400 reports were taken in our remote report center. Just so I can remind you, our remote report center allows people to either call in and have a report taken over the phone, or they can do a video conference report with an officer in the remote report center. The other thing that we were able to put in place as a budget highlight is our behavioral health unit. That was actually implemented in September of this year. We received several great, very good comments from several of our council members. To date, just to give you some statistical data, our behavioral health unit has handled 7 crisis situations, made 29 transports to behavioral health facilities, referred 39 cases, and this is one that we're really proud of. They've undertaken 42 with the behavioral health unit's officers and the clinician follow-up referrals for individuals in our community who have gone through or are going through mental health crisis situations. Our Eyes and Ears program was implemented to assist us with getting information out to fellow department members about crime that may be going on in the area and have them serve as our eyes and ears out in the community. Just to let you know, some of the members of our Eyes and Ears community are Parking and Mobility Services, Greenscapes, Code Enforcement, and we use those individuals as a force multiplier for our department. Also, we still have our neighborhood resource officers. We have a neighborhood resource officer that's assigned to each one of the precincts. And even during the time of COVID, our neighborhood resource officers have still been able to conduct 7 full-scale crime prevention or CPTED surveys, 21 business security consultations, and they've also attended 66 socially distanced community meetings. So we're proud of the way our neighborhood resource officers are continuing to perform out in the community. Also, our pre-arrest diversion program was launched in October of 2018. Just to get you up to speed, the pre-arrest diversion program offers persons charged with certain offenses the ability to avoid arrest by entering the pre-arrest diversion program. And upon successful completion of the program, they're able to avoid having a criminal record. The pre-arrest diversion program is basically intended to serve as a successful alternative to arrest and a community tool for improving both public safety and community relations. To date, more than 60 people have been diverted from the criminal justice program through our pre-arrest diversion program. Also, ShotSpotter Missions is a program that was funded through the budget. That is our actual proactive predictive policing program. That just got up and on the way about a month ago, so we're still in the process of evaluating that program. Our end-gun violence program is moving forward. We're in the process of doing interviews for a director's position for that program. We also realize that we're going to have to provide some additional funding for that program. That program has never really had a line item budget for it. The next item there is we have talked about, and we realize that we may not be able to do this now, our own in-house victim services unit. We're currently, like some of the other agencies, using victim services out of the district attorney's office. We at some point in time would like to have our own in-house victim services unit. Our flock camera program has proved to be very successful for us in assisting us with identifying vehicles that may be involved in crime-related matters. We're going to be looking at additional funding to add about 25 new flock cameras throughout our community. Our real-time crime center is something that we brought up and running on a limited basis earlier this year. We realized really to get that up and running on a more full-time basis, we're going to have to look at future funding for that program. Our restorative justice program is what we've been talking about. That's basically involved our violence interrupters or community outreach worker program. Just to give you a little background on that, what we're looking at as far as a violence interrupter and a community outreach program is something that was established a few years ago in Chicago, where they were able to reduce their shootings by 67% in the first year. Several cities around the country have implemented violence interrupter programs to include New York City, Baltimore, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Durham, North Carolina, New Orleans, and Jacksonville. The Violence Interrupter program basically runs off 3 basic principles, that is preventing retaliation, mediating ongoing conflicts, and keeping conflicts cool. We believe implementing a program like this would be very helpful and useful for us. We continue to run into those situations in the community where individuals have been the subject of violent crime or gun violence. They don't want to talk to us. We realize that they are considering retaliation out there, and we realize that the importance and the benefit that a violence interrupter program could have. Now, there are basically three parts to this program. One part is already in place, and that's a hospital interrupters program. Some of you may know John Bush over at Memorial Hospital, and he does a great job over there with the hospital interrupters program and talking to individuals, but he gets them after the fact, after they become victims of violent crime. The third leg of that stool is the enforcement part of the program, where we actively get involved in addressing those situations from an enforcement standard. We believe the other leg of that stool, which is the actual proactive violence interrupter program, is very important and very much needed in the organization. The other thing, and I take that back, the restorative justice program, that's basically the Savannah Impact Program. The Axon Aware item that's listed there, we're going to delay that. We're not going to bring that to council right now. And then I just talked about the community outreach and the violence interrupter program. So those are the that's the highlight information from our budget. I will address and entertain any questions the council has at this time.
Okay, if we can minimize the screen at this point, just so I can see everybody. All right, I see Alderwoman Wilder Bryan. Then Alderwoman Blakely.
Chief Mentor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your presentation. When you talk about being able to have diverted charges for at least 60 people, could you tell us if they were felonies or misdemeanors, or how do you track that after you did that diversion? And if they were felonies, can you tell us what charges they were?
Yes, and thank you for the question, Alderwoman Wilder Bryan. And I apologize for not clarifying that. The pre-arrest diversion program does not involve felony commits or felony arrests. It only involves what we refer to as low-level misdemeanor arrest. And to give you an example of what's in that classification, it would be things like disorderly conduct, criminal trespass, underage possession of alcohol, possession of drug paraphernalia, or a fray, which is basically fighting in public.
Okay, so when those charges are diverted, is there a tracking to see if they are repeat offenders, or is there no probation, or is there a record scrub? It doesn't actually happen. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that program?
Yeah, basically they're not incarcerated. And basically what they have to do is complete the tenets of the program. Once they do that, then they are not going to have a criminal record.
Okay, so could you send me some more information about that? And if they don't, I would like to know what the tenets are. And if they don't complete that, then what happens?
Absolutely, we'll get you that. We'll get that information to you and the rest of the council. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alderwoman Blakely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Mentor, I have 2 questions and a comment. Our in-gun violence program, I thought we had someone already hired for that, Isaac Felton. What happened with that individual? Because he was doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, let me give you a little history behind the in-gun violence program. The in-gun violence program was initially assigned to the district attorney's office. Mr. Felton was hired as a county employee. When the decision was made to transfer the position back over to the city, we could not transfer Mr. Felton's position over to the city without first opening that position up. So that position has been opened up, and we're now in the process of doing interviews for that position.
Oh, interesting. Okay, where are these 25 cameras going to be placed?
Well, what we're looking at is we already have several flock cameras deployed throughout the precincts. We're looking at adding probably an average of about 5 to each one of the police precincts.
Okay. And another question, I guess a comment. This is a budget meeting, a budget hearing. How much are all of these entities costing? What is the cost of the pieces that you're asking, that you gave us information on?
Well, the only one right now that we're looking at identifying some funding for, and I think Ms. Carter is going to talk about that, is the Violence Interrupter Program. The other components of the budget, we either need to delay those or we probably just need to bring those back to the council at another time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw Alderman Leggett.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I think that the question was just asked for me. I just wanted to know how much more money do we need for the end gun violence program, the flock camera, and do we have any officers, is my third part of the question, that's still familiar with the impact program, but I think we're going to push that back. Chief.
Let me start with the flock camera program. The flock cameras, the cost for the flock cameras are $2,000 per camera per year. So that's the cost of the flock camera program. As far as the officers for the Savannah Impact program, it's my understanding that that program initially started with a state grant, but those officers are still employed, or those positions are still allotted to the Savannah Police Department. So those are still programs, those are still positions that we still have as authorized positions as part of the police budget.
Do we still have officers that are familiar with the program when it was up and running? Because I understand that there were multiple aspects of that program to really run efficiently like it was before.
Yeah, just let me give you an idea of what we had in place before when Savannah Impact was up and running. We had 8 police officers, 2 sergeants, a captain, and a civilian director, i.e. a major that was in charge of the program. Several of these officers, and I know at least one person who's now a lieutenant, are still members of the department who also worked with Savannah Impact.
Let me add to that. In addition to that, Savannah's Impact success dealt also with the intergovernmental agreements that we had with probation and parole, that we had with Department of Juvenile Justice and these other agencies, plus contracts for mental health and also substance abuse. So all of that was kind of wrapped around, I think Chief said it very eloquently before, the difference between playing a zone defense and a man-to-man defense. Mr. Manager?
I would very much like in the next month to piggyback on those people in the department and the community who still know how this worked, which was designed at my kitchen table.
Right.
I could go back and get my notes, and we got this. Mayor and Alderman approved $750,000, and this the governor, Roy Barnes, $500,000. And as has been said, it came from corrections, pardons and parole, adult probation, and juvenile probations. Their main funding was to provide extra officers to lower caseloads. Chief Mincher would know right now what their typical caseloads are in those different agencies. They're very large. I would just guess maybe even 150 people, but we were attempting to get their caseloads down to say 30 people. And then they would also take a team approach so that our officers could make sure that people got regular home visits, they went to class, they were drug and alcohol tested, and so home visits, all that. I think I should I have a moral obligation to sit down, and not that the chief doesn't know how this works, to re-outline it. I think that the violence interruption is the base level. I actually say candidly, that was the next step for us because we were dealing with people who had been in the system, had multiple offenses. Now he's proposing what you might say, the entry-level positions who are 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and then Savannah Impact would pick them up at say age 18. And I think Alderwoman Walter Bryant was saying, okay, how did the diversion work? How did we can show how that supervision should work, and then try to not spend it all at once, but move back towards that, both in terms of the money and in terms of the skill sets and the staffing. That's what I would like to see.
Mm-hmm.
We would
and that's what I meant. That's what I meant when I wanted to find out how many different aspects there were of the Savannah Impact Program that made the program work, and how many officers we still have on the department that are familiar with the different aspects of how it worked within the community, how it worked within the school system, how it worked with the reentry program, and how it worked with our housing developments to try to alleviate a lot of our crime issue that we have right now. If we're going to invest a lot more money into programs, I think we'll be duplicating programs if we don't go through the parts of the SIP program that really work.
The other part,
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
The other part that I think, and again, this goes back to something that we talked about earlier with the coastal workforce services. That was and again, they actually helped manage that part of what was called work ventures. And so members of council have spoken before about things that we actually bid out that we could handle in the house, issues like cutting grass, maintenance contracts, boarding up houses, and those types of things that we bid out now. Before, we would use coastal workforce to provide training, and then we would bid that basically to ourselves, and we would then give those young men and women that actual work. So in the job training, that was how the program kind of fed itself. We recognized that if people had a job and had an opportunity, and they had supportive environments and mental and substance abuse counseling and things, that they did not go back to crime. And like I said, I hate it. It pains me that we got away from it. But we knew that the program worked. I'm sorry, Chief.
No, that's okay. And just to give you an idea, Mayor, I mean, this was kind of one-stop shop for individuals who were involved in the justice system. You're absolutely correct. We had probation, parole, we had Department of Juvenile Justice, we had Chatham County Juvenile Court, we had civilian positions that incorporated an administrative assistant, 2 cognitive behavior counselors, 1 crime analyst, 2 City of Savannah grounds technicians, and 1 budget analyst.
And we did things like fatherhood and all of these types of things. Again, really dealing with some of the soft skills, reintegrating with family and things. And, again, I hated it, but I think we have a major opportunity here to kind of get back and further than where we were. Alderwoman Lanier.
Yes, so we're talking about a lot of good sounding programs, but based on the uptick we have in crime, violent crime, we're going to have to do some things differently. They sound really good, but based on the results, we're going to have to change what we've been doing if we want to change the results. I mentioned before that back around 2004, the Department of Justice came to West Savannah and met with us, and they wanted to introduce a weed and seed program, because there's always crime and there's always the perception of crime. But believe it or not, we did not have levels high enough to qualify for the program, and it would have brought plenty of benefits and programs and funds and resources, but we didn't qualify for them. There, in the social science field, there are reports and studies that justify that there is a relationship between crime and poverty. When I served on Mayor Weiner's crime task force, we studied the conditions that breed crime, these conditions down in these neighborhoods, like the lack of jobs and the lack of housing, the broken windows. We looked at all of those things. And in these areas, you did have more pervasive crime in those areas. So we need to, are we looking at interdepartmental chief mentor programs or relationship? When you're working with designing programs with your staff, are we talking to other department heads? How many police are we going to make sure or offer housing in these neighborhoods? Is there a program in place where we're going to do that? Are we going to bring the PAL, the Police Athletic League, back? That was a successful model back in probably the 70s, probably 60s and 70s and 80s, but it worked. I'm talking now housing and recreation. Are we talking to each other and coming up with programs? Again, there's an uptick in violent crime. We have another pandemic. and we looked at the number of people who are being killed in this city, in bloody Savannah, in the last decade, it's probably much more than what we have going off our war dead. So we need to really understand that it is an epidemic right now, and we need to act with a sense of urgency to address the problem. There's a study out there where guaranteed income was provided to a community as a pilot. And when that was done, the crime went down. The violent crime, all crime went down. I think the numbers were astronomical. I'll try to pull up that report. You might want to Google it yourself. But what happened, the poverty went away. The people had resources and the crime went down. So we need to look at dealing or working the poverty angle more and integrating that in programs that address the crime and look at that correlation. Look at that numbers. When the poverty go down, does the crime go down? So the studies say that it does. So another thing, who are in these police positions? We need to make sure that our department is representative of the people that they police. We need to make sure that based on the Savannah population, that the officers in the police department mirror closest as possible with the population that they are policing. So I would like to suggest that we look more internally with our other departments and putting together POWER or something else. We got to do things differently if we want some different results. So let's put some police in these neighborhoods. Let's make sure, you know, maybe because they're not representative of the population, they don't want to live in the neighborhoods. I don't know, but are we addressing this? Are we talking about it? Do we have our professional people at the table making sure we come up with best practice models? Again, this uptick in violent crime is going to be on this council. So we need to put something in place and we need to address the poverty issue. So, and let's look at the best practice studies. Let's look at academia. Let's look at the theories and let's put some of those smart things in place so we could do something about the crime here in Savannah.
Thank you. Alderwoman Shabazz.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to the Savannah Impact Chief, why are we putting that on hold? Is it because of funds?
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and Council, those are all good points that I've heard. Just like to add to your thinking as you deliberate on the budget proposal, just for clarity. What the chief mentioned during his presentation, I was gonna go down a list of what is included in the proposed spending plan. His crime reporting, the behavioral health unit is grant funds supported in this budget plan, his eyes and ears program, the neighborhood resource officers, he mentioned the pre-arrest diversion program, and of course, ShotSpotter missions is also included. And he mentioned the in-gun violence positions are funded and included in the proposed spending plan. The PAL program, Police Athletic League, for those that are watching, that is also included in this proposed spending plan. The initiative of violence interrupters, which is a precursor and a start to incrementally bring back the full-on Savannah Impact program that you've been discussing. That is also incorporated. We have a way to fund that, and if that is the wish of the council, that would be not additional funding being added in. So we would not be proposing to pull from the contingency line unless we really had to. I do think though, at least for the first quarter, January through March, we can start this program started in January, and then as the manager mentioned earlier, we will have to come back to council at the end of the first quarter, again, just as we would to advise the council on how our revenue streams are floating as they have been estimated in the spending plan, how whether we need to make other adjustments. And so just for clarity, as you deliberate on the budget, I really wanted you to be clear about what's included in this spending plan that you already have before you versus what we were talking about adding on top of.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Carter, for that. I just wanted to find out about the Savannah impact because, like myself, the mayor has been talking about getting this program back up and running. So, as the items on the spending plan get fulfilled, and as you all project out for the future, that we can put that close to the top of the list for priorities to come back. The other thing is something that I've just been thinking about and just so curious. I hear our council talked about our police department officers and the representation of our officers compared to the population here in the city of Savannah. A while back, when we had more of a police department that represented our city in reference to ethnicity, let me just put it on the table. I do believe that when we have persons who are in communities that understand the culture of the community, then we can get better results on getting our arms wrapped around this crime situation. We have and been hearing about persons who are injured, persons who are killed, persons who are who become victims or part of violent crime, don't want to talk with our police department, our police officers, because first there's a serious trust issue that's in our city, but then we need to have folks on our police department that can resonate with the community persons. And I just feel that whatever we need to take and whatever we need to do, Chief, City Manager, Mr. Mayor, and all who are listening, whatever it takes to bring about a balance of Black and brown officers, men and women, on our police force. If it's additional training, if it's additional whatever the shortfall, because there must be a shortfall in persons who are coming into the academy or persons who cannot get into the academy versus those who are getting into the academy and who are graduating. So I just want to put that on the table, Chief, that we've got to take some more measures of helping and assisting other people, Black and brown people, men and women, who have a heart and a willingness to want to be officers in our city, who want to go back into the communities and take care of our folks. And then people who are involved in crimes and things of that nature, we can get folks to talking and getting down to the bottom of solving some crime. So I just wanted to put that on the table. And one more thing is a shot spotter. Is the shot spotter being extended from the limits where it is right now as we move forward into 2021?
Alderwoman Shabazz, I can tell you that we had that discussion earlier this year. That is a significant financial commitment to expand ShotSpotter. Certainly, if that's the desire of the council, we can certainly have that discussion, and I can provide the information regarding the cost for expanding ShotSpotter.
Well, and that'll be good, Chief, but how can we, as I say one of my words moving into 2021, is collaboration. How do we bring on and work together with the public and private businesses and entities that can help us make this happen without the city having to fund the whole bill? Just want to put that on the table, put that on your mind, and we can move forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderwoman Wilder Bryan.
I just like to say it's not the population. We already know that blacks make up about 56% of the population in Savannah. It's not that, it's the employment population. Um, right now in this climate, it's very difficult to get young people who are black and brown interested in becoming officers. And so if you don't have those officers who are black and brown, who are seeking an honorable job, I raised my family 18 years, it's an honorable profession. And so we've got to make sure that we put PALs back in place, because I can tell you from experience and knowing the young men and people in my age, they actually played on the teams there. And so there was some type of cohesiveness, and the community believed in the officers. And so when it was time to address crimes and ask people what was going on, they were readily available to assist and let you know what was going on. And so if you want people to look like the communities that they serve and work in, then we're going to have to increase and make it very great to be a police officer. You know, we talk about that, and while there's no easy way to get people to join, we do know that when PALS was in place, it was the ultimate in community policing. Now we have detectives and officers who don't know the communities. They come and stick cards in front of people's face, in front of people who are not readily wanting to talk to officers. And so we got to really create some programs, and the PALs worked. So we got to find money to put that back in place so that these young people know that police officer friendly, they can be trusted. That's the only way we're going to get more people on. And the other thing is, excuse me, Mayor, is we got to hold the housing authority, put their feet to the fire too, because there is no way that they can continue to allow their tenants to get slaughtered in the street and stand by and say that it's the police officers in this community, it's their job. You know, we used to have satellites in these communities where people are not wanting to admit that we have did everything but ignore the basic needs. The children can't play outside. And y'all want to know why Johnny can't read? Johnny can't read because Johnny can't sleep at night. And so when he goes to school, the best place that he can get some rest is at school. So I believe in root causes. And the root causes is what the alderman said. If we do something about poverty, we'll do something about crime. If we get more officers who look like the communities that they serve, and then we're not going to have to worry about if you see something, say something, because these parents are going to make sure that they tell what they know, because we have vested in the community, and these children have a safe haven, a place to go. So we can talk about, you know, who's employed and who's not employed. Young black people do not find being a police officer interesting or something that they would like to have a career for the rest of their life. But I know during my years, the PALs and Bolivet, he did the thing. And I know that there are other people, Adams, they are wanting to get this back on the book. And so y'all want to do something about police officers and getting them employed, then we got to get these children to understand that it's an honorable profession, and that the only way that we take care of our community is that we get them involved. And we have not been doing a good job with that. And so all of these things that you're talking about, get PALs back in, and then you'll see the difference. Thank you for your time, your energy, and all your effort.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, I'm a proud product of PAL in Brooklyn. Did karate through the Police Athletic League, and I will tell you that it absolutely works. The other thing I'll say that it's important, where it's important to have people that are black and brown, I think it's more important to have officers that care and officers of integrity. Because sometimes we've run into black and brown officers that, you know, of all races, that don't do the right thing. You want officers that care enough, that are willing to get to know the community they serve. And I submit to you that the 9 of us are the best advocates and recruiters for the police department that are out there. You know, it's one thing saying something here, it's something different, putting your hands on a young person, saying you want an interesting career field, you want an opportunity to do it. Do what I have done, what Alderman Palumbo has done, what Alderman Pertee is doing, what Alderwoman Wilder Bryan has done. You want to make your community better? Don't talk about it on Facebook. Put on a badge and get out there and help make it better. Alderwoman Gibson Carter. I see you.
Yes, thank you. You know, I feel like we are getting close to time ending for this meeting, and I so regret that we have saved something as important as crime that is currently happening in our community for today. We've gone through 2 city council meetings, 2 budget hearings, and we are just now having this discussion about crime. I recall in an earlier meeting, maybe our second meeting on council, where in our first month, the city experienced 5 or 6 homicides in a 1-month period. And I said at that time to you, Chief Mentor, what was it that you needed to get a hold of crime? And here we are today, 12 months later, eclipsing the number of homicides that occurred in the previous year. We will continue this same path if we do not do something different. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Mr. Brown, you mentioned in the budget hearing that you wanted to allocate $500,000 to reinstitute SIP. Now I think I'm hearing that we're not going to be able to reinstitute SIP. I'm going to ask again that this council recognize that there is nothing more important going on in this city than the crime that is occurring among our young African-American males. I want to also, in tandem to that statement, state that bullets don't have a name. And so while the demographic that is most adversely impacted by this epidemic that is currently going on, I want to acknowledge that we have a public health issue where crime and gun violence is concerned in our community today. In looking to collaborative partners, I would recommend that we institute SIP immediately, particularly because you've acknowledged that several of the individuals who work at SIP are currently within our department. I would recommend that we consider changing the name and seek collaborative support from Chatham County and call it the Savannah Chatham Impact Program. Because this isn't just a Savannah problem. This is a community-wide problem where our community is concerned. A shooting in Chatham County is a shooting in Savannah. A shooting in Savannah is a shooting in Pooler. We experience the same hurt and the same pain for our neighbors. There isn't enough money that we can save or reserve for this issue. These hodgepodge of programs, Chief Mentor, I was the first coordinator of the violence intervention program that turned into Intercept, and that is now the Interceptor or the Hospital Interceptor. As has been previously acknowledged, this issue with crime is a microcosm of issues. Thereby, we have to tackle it from both a proactive as well as a reactive approach. And that is, on one hand, looking at the issues related to how we are intentionally tackling crime and poverty, tackling poverty, which is why our questions and our issues with this housing task force has been so relevant today. So as we go forth, I would like to, again, ask that we spare no expense where this issue of gun violence is concerned. Whatever we need to do to institute or reinstitute SIP today, it needs to be done. I don't want another text message or an alert of this casual acknowledgement that we've had another shooting and we just go about our day in our merry way. So again, when we look at the fact that we all just attended the legislative breakfast this morning with many delegates from our state who live here in Savannah, Georgia. And it was disheartening not to hear one of those individuals mention anything about the crime that is occurring here in Savannah. We're talking about expanding the convention center. Our governor is getting ready to allocate nearly $300 million. And we just yawn on the watch of our babies. If it doesn't bother this council, who makes up the majority on this council are African Americans. And if it doesn't bother you that on our watch, we have experienced nearly the highest homicide rate in our history. So Mr. Brown, I'm asking you not to spare any expense where this issue is concerned. If we need to talk to Commissioner Ellis or whomever else, folks on our state level, Lester Jackson, get them involved and let's do something about this crime. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Alderman Gibson Carter misinterpreted what I understood this to be. The Violence Interrupter Program is the preceptor to Savannah Impact, and that is funded. Am I correct, Ms. Carter?
Yes, we are attempting to fund that in the proposed spending plan with existing resources. We are working that out. We hope, though, to come back to you at the end of the first quarter and give you an update on whether we feel we will be able to continue that or whether we would need to revisit additional resources and strategies for those additional resources.
Mr. Mayor, could I say
That's my point, Mr. Mayor.
Exactly
what you just said is my point.
I think the point is that you can't, because of how Savannah Impact was, and I'm intimately familiar with how it was structured, you can't, it's something because it dealt with not only so many intergovernmental agreements, such as it also dealt with a location in a building, that you can't just throw that together. It has to be ramped up. I think the most, and the quickest, most immediate need are the violence interrupters, as the chief have said. You know, I think I'm at more crime scenes than anybody else. I'm at the hospitals when this happens. So I don't act like it's anything casual. I've talked to young men who have told me that they chose not to tell the police. They rather handle it in the streets themselves, which I think is horrible. And I said, well, you know what that means, right? They said they know what that means. We have to get people in the street level to engage these folks to stop these violent crimes before it happens. And that's what the Savannah Impact Program did. I think this gives us the lead time to start those necessary, I see you, Mr. Brown, to start the necessary conversations with partners again. I'm glad the Chief Mentor and Chief Hadley of the county have a good relationship. Certainly, I still have a good relationship with the county. Their funding cycles are a little different than ours. I think we have to start those critical conversations. I think the council is totally in agreement. But then the other side about that, we have a state in which guns are allowed everywhere. And so when you have guns that are allowed everywhere and you have bad decision making, you have shootings. I attended a funeral, a part of a funeral today, of a young man gunned down in our streets who did good in our community. So I'm sick and tired of doing it myself. But I think, to your point, I think that is exactly what you're saying is exactly what Chief Mentor has proposed, and Ms. Carter has already informed council that we're well on our way to do it. Mr. Brown?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I agree that this is our most urgent issue, so let's spend a few more minutes. I see our chief and our department and you, we need to tell the community that this is an urgent community. We talk about it and we want to take action. We agree on that. Let me go back, because in 1999, I'm going to just bear with me, because I've heard some feedback that, you know, we don't necessarily need to be going over the history of anything. That the reason I designed this program, not me, but with our partners, was because of there's almost like no adjective that can describe the distress that we all feel when these young men are killed. Let's agree to that. We all affirm that is as distressing as it can be, and that people here themselves personally have experienced that and feel the anguish that we can't even understand. But I'll tell you this, in 1999, we had 42 homicides. That was the year I designed this program, to do a person-based, behavior-based mental health school. They couldn't read. They committed spouse and child abuse. They abused their parents, their mothers. All of these behaviors were there for all the different reasons: mental health, alcohol, a history of violent activity. Not to label them, this was to take them and where they were, probation, parole, juvenile probation, and to take them through a behavior change, skill set building, get a job, get a driver's license, get back into the workforce, do the things that are necessary for success. That was designed with 42 homicides in 99. And then from there until 2010, 42, 35, 26, 27, 24, I hesitate to even say these, 23, 28, 21, 22, 25, 29, 17. That 17 homicides was the lowest we have ever had since 1980, when I came here 40 years ago. The way to get back to where we're going is to do something different, and it's to person, young man to person. That is what the chief is proposing, to talk to young men in the street with people that care about them, yes, black, brown, and white like me, to talk to them in a humane, caring way, not to harass them, not to use stop and frisk, not to put them in a computer algorithm and make it impossible for them to walk the neighborhood, but to do a service-based employment. I commit to you that I will work with the chief. First, let's do this violence intervention. Secondly, to make a proposal on gangs. And then thirdly, to put the most urgent components of Savannah Impact back in place with partner agencies, asking them to either provide cash, or if the state juvenile justice system agrees for a certain number of young men to lower their caseload from 80 to 30, they can contribute that as a staffing commitment. And I will say this bluntly, during the last years of Savannah Impact, we ran this program for the city and the unincorporated area and the rest of the county, and the county refused to give us the money to run the program. And Russ Abolt said to me, well, we want you to run this, but we are not willing to fund it. So my anger is that we did this. It was different. We must do it again, and all of us must make that commitment. So I'm asking you to give me the latitude with the chief to make these changes, make proposals to you, and come back to you 1 month at a time, 2 months at a time, and re-implement these. I even asked you to commit to a tax increase if that were necessary. I'm not proposing that right now, but we must be ready as each step is ready to refund that. So I hope you will work with me. I feel passionate about this as you do. I know you do. You told me that personally and you've said that publicly. So I recommend that you adopt what the chief has now proposed. He is ready to do these next steps. I think we should show this is how it will work, this is how it will cost, and I've done a few budgets here. Let's figure out how to fund those each step, each 3 months, and then if we have to, when we set our millage actually in July and August, then I will come back to you or whoever will to say, how do we re-implement these? But we must, as you say, we must do it differently. It must be individual based. It must be family and neighborhood based. And we must track our progress and be willing to invest in it. My passion comes from the past. I lived through this. I designed this. I got our partners together. Some of them did not wish to fund it. Nevertheless, we went ahead. So I have confidence that this chief, as I've spent several hours and hours talking to him, he can do this, his staff can do it, and I commit to you that I will do it in the time that I am here. Thank you.
Alderwoman Shabazz.
Excuse me, Mayor Johnson, I've been holding my hand up.
No, Alderwoman Shabazz was first, then you, then Alderwoman Lanier. Alderwoman Shabazz.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to state that I did hear Mrs. Carter, correct me if I'm incorrect, but I did hear that you stated that the Police Athletic League is back into the budget.
Yes, it is included in the proposed spending plan.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to put that out so the public can hear that Alderwoman Wilder Bryan, I know what you're talking about. We lived in that generation when our folks was coming up in it and they knew there was a direction. Where are you? There you go. There was a direction for our young men, and now we add now young women into the Police Athletic League. So that's on the books, and we're gonna move forward. It just was missing for almost a whole generation, but now it's back. Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Thank you. Alderwoman Blakely.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. I hold this document in my hand right here. I went to the tax assessor's office today and I picked up this copy of every single property that Savannah College of Art and Design owns in this city. That means that we're not getting any tax dollars off of these properties, but they're constantly and continually growing in our city. They just purchased the building, Chatham Apartments on Abercorn Street. Now, it makes absolutely no sense that we have an entity in our community that's building, prospering all over the city, and we're up here trying to find a way to get $500,000 to pay to start a program. I had the opportunity to go to their command center for ShotSpotter, which is basically just downtown. That particular organization can definitely provide some of the finances and the programs that we need here in this city. What is the problem? Why have we not reached out to them? Why have we not had the conversation with SCAD about supporting us? If MIT can do it, if Harvard can do it, if Princeton can do it in their cities where they're not paying taxes, then doggone it, SCAD can surely do it in Savannah as well. I believe that all it takes is for us to ask the question. 107 properties that they don't pay taxes on, and doggone it, they can surely give our city something. There's no reason why Savannah Impact has to be put on the back burner for nothing. It makes absolutely no sense. City manager, I challenge you to do whatever it takes to have the conversation with Savannah College of Art and Design. I want this to be public record, to make sure that we get something from them, because they surely getting a heck of a lot from us. Thank you.
Let me say for the record, actually, I've been in conversations with SCAD this week, as a matter of fact, regarding the folks that have been displaced due to their purchase of the Chapel Apartments. It also needs to be said, SCAD actually funds the Shot Spotters operation downtown. They actually are the ones subsidizing that because we could not afford to take that on for ourselves. It was the beginning of this conversation, which is why the whole fire fee discussion came up. Not only SCAD, but also nonprofit entities across the city, that right now state law does not allow us to tax or to ask for a payment in lieu of taxes. But my conversation with SCAD is basically talking about some of the things you're talking about, Ms. Blakely. So I hope to reveal more about that in the coming days. But I definitely.
Well, Mayor Johnson, maybe you need to take some of us with you to have that conversation with SCAD. Sometimes
No, I mean, again,
okay.
I think they are good conversations from a good place, and again, from an acknowledgement of not only what SCAD provides for Savannah, but what Savannah provides for SCAD.
Exactly, it's strength in numbers.
And so
you can't do it by yourself all the time.
No, well, I think again, but it also has to come from a place of cooperation and not condemnation.
Exactly.
So
but you got the start. You got the start.
Well, I'm saying to you that the city managers are familiar with, those conversations are ongoing. So I hope to have something to report back to council in the very near future. But those conversations are occurring. Alderwoman Lanier.
Yes, again, I wanted to mention, I'm so glad that the PALS program is coming back and being financed. Bolivet was the champion of PALS. Herman Allen worked this west side end on this side of the first district. So kudos to those great men from our past. They did more than sports. They had leadership training, and it really just was an excellent program. So what I'm hearing is that all of the council members are making these great suggestions and recommendations. Then I hear, we have that. Like, it's in there. So if we have all of this in there, if we are funding what we're saying, these initiatives, then I'm going to expect 1 year from today that these numbers are going to be way down. And Michael is saying that we're going to look at this on a month-by-month basis, and we're going to monitor this very close. But if we're saying it's in there, and then the change should be in there too, and that's what we're going to be looking for. So let's make sure, and we are all on one accord, and that we fully fund the needs of our police department. We fully embrace these recommendations. They're already in there. So I'm anticipating that change in all of our poverty initiative, and making sure that we don't place extra burdens on low wealth, marginalized, vulnerable communities and set them up for failure. Let's keep that in mind as we move forward. Michael was talking about the 42 homicides back in 1999. And during that time, what was going on the streets and in the system was considered a criminal justice problem. And we took a criminal justice approach to what was going on with the drugs and young people. Now we have a problem with drugs and crime, and it's a public health approach because we have a different population subject to a different type drug. So these are the things that we have to look out for, and making sure that we apply equitable solutions and approaches to these problems. So I'm just glad that Ms. Melissa is assuring us that what we're bringing up here, these programs we want to resurrect, we want to revisit or recreate, that we are funding these. I think we are supporting that funding, and we are expecting the changes. And if we don't see those as we monitor this pandemic month by month, then we need to be prepared at a certain interval mid-year to make more serious or different changes, so we could make sure we design this police approach to the outcomes that we expect.
Absolutely agreed, Alderwoman Lanier. Again, hence why we said this 12-month budget will almost be a month to month. It gives us an opportunity to look at outcomes. I don't think we've really looked at outcome-based management enough to make sure that the money we're putting in is getting us the results that we need. So I think staff gets that, and so we can expect to have those conversations. So that has it there. Miss Carter. I know Chief Kitchen has been, Chief Mentor.
Just real quick as a wrap up, Mayor, because I don't want to leave the council thinking that we weren't already following up on some things. We were already prepared to kick off PAL this year when COVID started, so that kind of delayed us kicking off the PAL program. Also in the area of recruitment, we're continuing to go out there and we're continuing to be in the community to continue to try and recruit and continue to try and recruit in our community. Any help or assistance that you could provide to us, we would greatly appreciate it. The other thing I wanted to talk about with Alderwoman Lanier, you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about poverty and employment opportunities for individuals in our community. Earlier this year, right before COVID hit, we brought in and had a presentation done before some of the community members and Chamber of Commerce from a company by the name of TCI Solutions. They work with communities around the country to get individuals trained in the area where they can go out and really become competitive for high salary positions. They work with cable companies, they work with energy providers, they work with heating and air conditioning companies to get individuals to training in that area so that they can go out and be competitive and get those jobs where they can make $20, $30 an hour. This is something that we really need to double back on and follow up on, but this is something I think could be very beneficial in our community. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Alderman Wilder Bryan.
I just wanted to ask the chief, is he going to move forward on replacing the assistant Price, or where are you with that?
Alderman Wilder Bryan, I need to have a couple of follow-up conversations with the city manager and with the HR director, and then I'll get back to council on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
I just want to, I know we've talked a lot about our police department and our police. I want to just congratulate our police officers, particularly those who are working these homicides, because as much as individuals are dying on the streets of Savannah and as fast as they are, we seem to be apprehending suspects or persons of interest. And I want to congratulate them for their diligence. And we would be remiss as a council if we did not acknowledge that we recognize that harmony and balance and decorum within our police department go hand in hand with performance, and how well they are treated at work is directly associated with how well they perform on their jobs. And so we want to be mindful and considerate of the fact that there are some concerns of many of our officers, and we hope that you, Chief, along with Mr. Brown, are paying attention. And it is necessary that I say this on this platform because they still feel as if they have been ignored. Thank you.
Alderwoman Gibson Carter, thank you very much for bringing that up. And I can tell you I'm extremely proud of the work the men and women of the Savannah Police Department do on a daily basis. Any loss of life is tragic. Anytime a situation involves someone with a violent crime, it's a very tragic situation. We don't brag about things, but when you look at our clearance rate for homicides, we're at about 72%. The national average is about 60%. Of course, that doesn't make people feel good when they know they've lost a loved one. But I can tell you there is no shortage of hard work by the men and women of the Savannah Police Department going out there on a daily basis, trying to solve these crimes, trying to address these issues, and trying to make sure they're doing the best job possible of keeping our community safe. So thank you very much for those comments.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for the work. And as I try to do whenever I see police officers, thanking them. I'm seeing them clearing these cases very quickly. And I recognize fully some of these crimes, if there was a police officer standing on the corner, would not have been able to prevent that, as they're occurring in people's homes and other private spaces in which we don't have access to. I know it's difficult, but I know this is not the worst we've had. Certainly it's unacceptable. And I know that we're going to do the necessary things to do better and be better. So thank you so much, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Thank you. Miss Carter, well, Chief Kit has been kind and patient, so we want to go ahead and get him up. I mean, Council, if that's all right, if you want to go ahead and press on, I'm here. Y'all, everybody's okay with pressing on? Let me just see your hands, make sure we're good.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Let's press on.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, Council, and all other leaders in your respective places. I will be presenting the budget overview for Savannah Fire Department. Chief Menard sends his warm regards, and it was regret for not being able to attend today. First, I want to give you an overview of our performance highlights for the year. In preparing for the budget, we reflected on the unprecedented challenges our community and the fire department faced and how we adapted to those challenges. We embrace these challenges by developing new ways to reach the public. I genuinely believe that adversity is one of the most significant paths to improvement. And we improved by doing this, despite the circumstances. We was able to reach the public by creating virtual fire education programs. Janelle Few, our PIO, and our Fire Marshal, Whitney Smith, their efforts enabled us to reach over 6,500 citizens through virtual presentations. We still install smoke detectors. We still help local businesses with inspections, life safety checks, and Tier 2 inspections. Most importantly, we still was able to engage with our students at Woodville Tompkins Firefighter Pathway. This is a program that's integrated into the public schools where students can come and learn how to be a firefighter. In fact, we use this as one of our recruitment tools. So the initiatives for next year is on December the 1st, we started with a partnership with Chatham Emergency Services and E911. We started responding to medical calls. These medical calls include drug overdose, drowning, shooting, stabbings, burns, and other critical calls. Over the past years, we have been training our staff to be EMTs. We currently have 130 EMTs on the department, and everyone on the department is trained to be an emergency medical responder, which enables us to give initial treatment to emergency incidents. Next thing we want to do is have a health and safety officer. We are intricate. We really believe in community risk reduction. That's how we geared the fire department. So everything that we do is geared around community risk reduction. With a health and safety officer, we can not only be geared around that community risk reduction, but we can be engaged with the community. These health and safety officers can help teach CPR, help individuals with their home safety checks, and make sure that Savannah is safe to all residents. And we also want to increase our community risk development by using our data. One thing that we do is have a heat map. This heat map shows you where the call volume is critical in Savannah. As you can see, the red is the most highest call volume, and then we move out to the other areas. Go to the next slide. One of the areas that we need to address is the New Hampstead area. Currently, we don't have a public safety building within 5 miles of New Hampstead, which means that we have a 12-minute response to the residents of Savannah in that area. This is for police, fire, and medical service. We're hoping to put a structure out in that area, a public safety building that encompasses all those resources, and it can be a critical work shelter for the residents and for our staff. The staff can use that for tornadoes. The residents can come there because it will be a category rated 5 tornado building. We also will explore partnerships with the police department, with the medical needs, and educating our citizens. You go to the next one. What is that? That's the end of it, right?
Yes, Chief, that's
All
it.
right. So I do want to go to one thing. This is what I was getting at. I went over that quickly because I really want to get to you and talk to you about diversity in the fire department. Last year, December, we gave you guys an overview of what the fire department was doing, and you were adamant about the diversity and the priority that the fire department should have in that. And I want to ensure you that we have embraced that diversity. We have diverse personnel moving up through the ranks. So we have made this a part of our strategic plan. We also developed a recruitment team using our HR rep, our training officer, and our PIO. This recruitment team worked with youth groups, community groups, church groups, and 100 Black men. We reached out to local schools, Savannah State, Georgia Southern, and of course we used our Woodville Tompkins School. We use social media to reach individuals. Facebook, Twitter, we use the city website. We also advertised on National Minority Update, National Public Sector Jobs, Indeed, Pandora. And we also are developing a recruitment video to show the life of a firefighter, to engage our young people. We registered with the Department of Labor as an apprenticeship program, which we're working with HR to start that apprenticeship program next year to bring individuals in the fire service to let them know how we work and if they want to go to this occupation. We posted application signs in front of every station. With COVID, we had to make our testing process virtual, but we opened that process up for 3 months. And we also provided the individuals with a study guide so they can pass the written test in that 3-month time frame. We prepared them for interviews by working with our HR rep. She gave them a course in how to interview. We also open up the CPAT practice early. That is the physical test that they have to take to get on the fire department. Not only did we open it up early for them to come in and practice the test, we also had a conditioning time frame to help them get in shape for the test. 20 people participated in this process on a regular basis, and 17 of the 20 people passed the actual test. Inside the organization, we are working on officer development, a mentoring program, and new guidelines for professional development. We also had a current battalion chief process. In that process, we had a tutorial to let the individuals know of the process and what was expected of them in that process. And that will be conducted from now on for every job opening that we have. And I also want to say, I'm a byproduct of PALS. I'm also a Savannian at heart. I've been here since I was young. However, I have had the free lunch. I come from impoverished neighborhoods. I benefited from Mr. Brown's decisions to pave Carver Village. I was there when that happened. I was, family lived on Baker Street when it flooded. So I know, I'm telling you this because I'm engaged with Savannah. I know Savannah and I love Savannah. And that we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that our fire department represents Savannah.
Thank you, Chief Kitchens. Mayor, I know because of time, I do have 2 more slides to advise the council of, if I may right now, to allow us the next step.
But those were next steps. Yeah, no, well, let's stick where we are. Chief Kitchen,
Okay.
thank you so much. I saw Alderwoman Wilder Bryan, Alderwoman Lanier. I do want to tell you that, you know, we have a lot to be proud of in Savannah's bravest. We are and remain a ISO Class 1 fire department, which is the top 1% of fire departments in the country. Anywhere we are, except for Bradley Point at this point, if you call Savannah Fire, they will be there in 4 minutes. And beyond that, they're engaged in the community. They're doing blood pressure checks. They're in the homes. They're helping us doing whatever it needs to be done. And we've also had some recent reports of Savannah Fire being heroes off duty. And so I just want to thank you and the men and women of Savannah Fire. And certainly you have certainly bolstered your diversity, and it's not easy being a Savannah firefighter. We only want the best. Alderwoman Wilder Bryan and Alderwoman Lanier.
Just wanted to thank Mr. Kitchens for his presentation, and just wanted to just thank you for the phenomenal job that you do. But I have a couple of questions, and thank you for engine number 9 and engine number 8 in the mighty 3rd District. I have a rapport with them, and I just love them, and Denard and Jewel. But what I wanted to ask you is, I've been talking to some of the women on your team, and how is it working with their going up the ladder, and what is your plan to recruit more females? And also wanted to ask, you showed a map, and so I just wanted to know, what is the red area? What area in Savannah is the red area on your map? I couldn't really tell.
So that's like the downtown area, like from Forsyth Park to Victory Drive. That's one of our highest call volume areas. Yeah. So that's what the heat map shows. It shows the highest call volume and then outward. So what we do, we line our fire stations and apparatus up to the highest call volume. So you can see, if you look at a map, if I had a map to show you the station, I can make sure you get it. Our stations are lined up down the center of the city. And like the mayor said, we were able to get to areas in 4 minutes by strategically placing them throughout the city. And that's just area is between Victory Drive and Forsyth Park area.
And so would they be a red area because they're mostly businesses?
No, ma'am, it's residential, older residential, so they get a higher call volume. Yes,
okay, all right. Yeah, but thanks again for all the work that you guys do at the fire department. You do an amazing job. Thank you so much.
I do have an answer for you for the women. So the program that we started doing the process, the hiring process, it was initially intended to help women pass the test. But in order to help everyone pass the test, we just opened it up to everyone. And we actually had 2 women that actually passed the physical agility test. It is a very demanding test, and that's why we try to open it up to make sure they can get familiar with it and practice so they can pass.
And so is the retention rate higher for females or less? Because I know it's a demanding job. And
yes, ma'am. It is. Well, I guess we do have a lot of females who make this a lifelong career. So we do have of the opportunities they can go into as they move up through the ranks. So you just don't have to be a firefighter. You can go into training, fire marshal's office, things of that nature.
Okay. And just one other question. And so how many health and safety officers personnel are you requesting?
Well, we are requesting 3. However, what we want to do is reclassify 3 positions. So we're not asking for new positions. We're asking to reclassify those positions.
Okay.
We already have vehicles, cell phones, so it'll be a minimum cost.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Alderwoman Lanier.
Hello, Chief Kitchens. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your service and the work that you all do as first responders. We really appreciate you all and want to make sure that you have all that you need to be equipped to do this job. You mentioned the facility in the Highlands. Are we talking about the fire department that's under construction right now, the replacement building?
No, ma'am, that's the Highlands. I was talking about the one in New Hampstead.
Oh,
We don't have
okay.
a station out there. That
Okay.
station is number 14. They'll be moving out of the modular building into that new station.
Okay, so we're talking about New Hampstead. The other thing is kitchens, Carver Village, is that Tompkins 69?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, again, Chief, we thank you. And then just for you all to know, in order to maintain the best, we have to be the best. You know, the last council did some things in terms of getting rid of the fireboat and getting a, ultimately in a coastal area, we had a dedicated company to man the fireboat. Obviously, not this year, but ultimately we want to get back to that for purposes of training and the purposes of equipment. We're in a riverfront city, so obviously it will be a good opportunity. And when it gets warmer, I hope the council will take advantage of an opportunity to go out on the fireboat and just see the work that they're able to do in terms of patrolling and really dealing with fire issues on the riverfront. So thank you very much, Chief. Again, we appreciate you as well.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Shabazz.
Chief Christian,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much for your service. And Chief Menard, tell him thank you too, and all of the men and women of our Superior Fire Department. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll make sure they get the message.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends our presentations, our budget presentations. And so my question to Ms. Carter and the city manager, at this point, our budget is balanced, Ms. Carter?
Yes, sir.
All right, so at this point, with all of the presentations we've had, again, we wanted to take the time to make sure we had the time to discuss it. Our budget is balanced, as is required by state law. Alderman Lanier?
Yes, ma'am. One last question, and this is for Michael. So in some of the previous budgets, there was a graphic that I think maybe a pie chart or something that showed the budget allocations, the percentages based on council's priorities,
right,
whether that amount was going for poverty or infrastructure or good government. I was looking through the books. Am I overlooking that? Do we have such a graphic in this?
Right. We should do that. We'll go ahead and prepare that and send it. So we can show that as we shift towards those priorities, not that we haven't worked on some of them, then we can say we're making a larger investment in those, and I think Melissa can do that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Carter, so where do we go from here?
Well, Mayor, I'd like to share my screen one more time, just to recap what we have done since November 18th. It should be coming up in just a minute. Great. So as I'm going to take us a little bit back to our November 18th budget workshop, which was day one, we had a discussion on policy and research in regards to poverty and income inequity in our jurisdiction. We also have gone over the financial update for FY 2020, as well as a projected economic outlook in this COVID climate. We have had the budget overview of the 2021 budget proposal. We've also discussed our utility enterprise funds, community partnerships, and cultural investments that are incorporated in the spending plan. And we have had continuing discussion on advancing communities together, our segment on poverty, economic opportunity, affordable housing, neighborhood blight, equity, and well-being with police and fire discussions today. I want to just recap for our community and as well as the council. Our next update will be on December 10th. That will be our first public budget hearing, with a second public budget hearing being held on December 18th. And for council's awareness, we will also be having second reading on December 18th for our annual operating budget for 2021, capital plan, and the policy document, as well as the revenue ordinance. We are have tentatively scheduled adoption of these documents on December 18th as well. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point and turn it back over to you, mayors. Just want to get everybody on the same page and that we know what's coming up next. December 10th will really be our last opportunity before December 18th to really work out any other items that need to be worked out. Of course, we need to hear from the public and their comments on the proposed budget as it stands before everyone.
Mayor
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
If we have other recommendations, what do? Do we give them to Ms. Carter? How do we go about?
It'll be through the city manager.
To the city manager?
If you would, Keish, I'm sorry, Melissa and I are at this point now conferring on each possible change. So if you have information you need, I would encourage you as of today until early next week, give her a call and she'll keep me advised. And then we'll try to make sure it's not impossible to build anything in, but it's got to keep on being balanced.
I mean, not to necessarily build anything in, but if
or questions,
something that we want to, take out. Right.
So let us know, and in the interest of responsiveness, I'm going to let her be the conduit, but she keeps me appraised of what any proposals there are. We'll do our level best, not only to give information, but I don't think we should be averse to, modifications. What I was trying to say is that we are changing direction on poverty and so forth. Rather than just put a lump sum out there, it would be better to take each step, come forward, identify the costs, and then see if we have revenue as the economy comes back. So you're adopting this, but it's not a fixed plan. It's literally a month-to-month plan. But in the next week, please let Melissa know, get your questions answered, make your suggestions, and then we'll make sure all of you know what's going on prior to next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
Regarding the request for $500,000 for the housing task force, is that something we need consensus on? Is it a done deal, or do we weigh in on whether or not we support that or not?
It's incorporated in the proposed spending plan. And yes, if the council deems to not want to fund that in your direction to staff, when you approve the adopted budget with any certain changes, you can state that at that time. But it's already included. It's included in the balancing of the proposed spending plan. That helps for decision making.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we the 10th and December the 18th. I appreciate you all. Again, I've done a lot of these. It's number 16, I guess, and so we spent a good amount of time on discussing it, and I'm glad that you all asked good questions. I think that the city manager and the team having a clear idea of where we want to go. Ultimately, once we approve it, then it becomes our budget. Ms. Carter.
One more clarification, and this is back to Alderwoman Keisha Gibson Carter's comment. Did you mention the housing task force, where we're funding a housing task force, 500,000? I just want to clarify, the 500,000 incorporated in the proposed spending plan is into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is our fund. It was the housing task force that just made a comment. Just for the record, I want to clarify that.
This is the same fund that Memorial and St. Joseph's and all of these folks make contributions into. So this is us really investing in our strategic needs.
So I want to stress, Mr. Mayor, that the money that goes into that, it's our money, but then it goes directly to housing units. This goes, you might say, directly to the people who are in housing distress. And that's why I'm saying as soon as possible, let's have a housing finance briefing, so that when you say, well, where's the 500? It would be at $10,000 or $20,000 a piece directly into single family, multifamily. That money goes towards the cost of building a unit. So I think that's why the money's critical. It doesn't go to an organization. It goes to the individual. It may go through an organization, but it's going to the housing units that all of us agree we need to fund.
So this is different, Mr. Brown, from what was stated previously. Previously, it was stated that the funds were going to be used to leverage for more money, but you're saying the funds are going to be used to directly build units.
No, actually, let me clarify. It's actually both. Let's just say that a unit costs $150,000. Well, the person who's going to buy it or rent it, they're helping to pay that difference, usually in the form of a mortgage or a landlord who's paying a mortgage. But if an affordable unit, obviously we have thousands that the market will not build because there's not enough money to do that. Therefore, our 500,000 goes out 10,000 or 15 or 20,000 at a time to go towards the construction of that unit. So it is leveraged, and it's going with other people's money, bankers, Mercy Housing, CHSA. Those funds go together, and then that's what builds the unit. So it's both into the unit and leveraged.
And I think further, what I'll do, I was not planning on council having a workshop on for our final meeting of the year. We can ask, if that's okay with you all, for Mr. Freddie to come give a report of the activities of the Housing Savannah Task Force.
I think we have like a handful of more pressing issues before this.
Well, I mean, again, if there's confusion, to make sure it is, then again, this is an opportunity for us to be able to do that. Again, that's up to the woman.
I'm not confused. I think the rest of the council probably gets it. It was just so many conflicting.
Well, I mean, the terms are Housing Savannah, and again, if you are conflicted, then maybe other people are. Housing Savannah is our task force that is charged with providing council with an affordable housing plan. The Savannah Affordable Housing Fund is a fund maintained by the city of Savannah that is used directly for housing and for leveraging housing. And so the request that was made was for those funds to go into the Savannah Housing Fund. The Housing Savannah Task Force operates off of no money and requires no council allocation at all. They are a volunteer task force. They will provide us they'll provide us a draft plan, and then that task force goes away. They would have served their purpose.
I think I'm fine. I don't know about the remainder of council. I think if we continue in the spirit of just greater communication, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Yeah, John. Good, Mr. Mayor.
Alderwoman Blakely, I saw Blakely first and then Lanier.
I just want to reiterate us getting a copy of all the individuals that's on that particular task force, based on the fact that Alderwoman Lanier stated that there were a lot of African American contractors that used to be with the city and they're no longer there. We just want to make sure, again, that it's equitable with that task force and also inclusive of individuals that live in our low wealth, poverty-stricken communities. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We will re-forward council what was originally sent with the names of the people on the Affordable Housing Task Force. Alderwoman Lanier.
Yes, I just wanted to share when Step Up was in the earlier days, and when I served on the board, we created the Savannah Housing Fund and turned it over to the city to administer. So that was set up in supposedly the poverty reduction program, but the city is the administrator over the fund. It came out of Step Up.
That's correct. And again, I think it's been said, because I think you've all been witness before, that there are opportunities where other agencies will come and they will make presentations, $25,000, $50,000 to those funds. Those funds are used to leverage other funds that we're able to use. So, but anything else, Mr. Brown? I see your glamour shot again. Okay. No, I don't. We can't hear you though. We can't hear you though.
Turn your mic on.
You muted.
Somebody's not sitting down.
Whatever you were
I
saying.
can say that the picture that they're showing of me is completely a misrepresentation of reality. But having said that, in all seriousness, Melissa is waiting on bated breath, really, so that we can get your comments and build them into the best of our, I think there's a trust factor this year in that we are including some funding, and yet we're also making policy and policy direction changes and commitments. So I'm saying that I want to try to make sure that those commitments are in the policy document so we say, well, we didn't fund that yet, but we're going to fund that once it's fleshed out. We get the cart, behind the horse, that we will have a proposal. It'll be costed out. Melissa will say it works. It's cutting across the silos, and then it will present it to you for approval. And hopefully the economy and our budget will permit it. We must do that so that we can do these violence reduction measures, the poverty reduction measures, and the income inequity, those measures. So I commit to you that however long I stay, that I'll try to make sure that those are documented so that you'll know that they will not go away. They will be a permanent policy direction and funding and resource commitment into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
I'm sorry, one last comment. Ms. Carter, I didn't see in the breakout, thank you so much for printing off the various departmental budgets, but I didn't see one for the Office of Sustainability. Did we increase the budget for that department?
As mentioned in the budget workshop, Council, we do have an additional FTE incorporated for the Office of Sustainability. That is shown in the line item budgets within the Chief Infrastructure Development Office. So you have your copy.
I was looking for a different name. Thank you.
Right. It is incorporated as a division within the Chief Infrastructure Development Office. This is an additional FTE that's being enhanced in support of the 100% renewable energy resolution that Council approved earlier this year.
Right. So outside of the staffing requests, were there any additional requests to help us come closer to achieving that goal?
As part of the plan, it is my understanding that 2021 will be used to incorporate those focus groups within the community to try to develop the next steps forward. We needed the additional FTE to facilitate that, and of course, in accordance with Nick Deathley, who's the director of that area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then remember, Council, I have not forgotten. We'll be sending you an email, so please think about that person you would like to submit to our sustainability task force that will be working with Mr. Deathley to help roll that out. So hopefully you have somebody in mind. So when we send those out, he's asked for that support from Council, so he's reaching those communities. So think of somebody so when you'll be prepared to send that in. Mr. Brown, Ms. Lanier.
Next comment, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Brown, when are we going to have some discussion on our legislative agenda?
We're hoping that was this coming week, correct?
Right. We sent you, that's a great question. We still have some time. For example, I met this week with Senator Jackson. We sent you the agenda items. I would ask you to look at those. And then, so there's two questions: what's on the agenda, and how do we pursue that? I think Senator Jackson and others would concur. This is going to be a highly unusual and unprecedented session because they haven't really decided. Last year they had, as you know, the COVID. They had to adjourn. This year they're going to have to be very much under wraps. So I think we should greatly limit what's on that agenda for this year, not to forget it. So he and I discussed about items he thought should be on it, and I'd like us to have perhaps a little bit of time on one of these, either the next council meeting or the final one, and say, here's the agenda items, and then how we should pursue that. And our delegation
has ideas about how to pursue it as well. So to be clear, we should narrow it very much because they're not going to have time to do much except to balance a budget and a few other things.
The other, the thing I would suggest to council, and I suggested to the city manager, I'm asking for us to kind of take a new approach of us really starting essentially now a 3-year legislative agenda. We always look at things in a silo. Sometimes things are in timing. So essentially we would lay out, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then strategically look at where things should fall in or where they could fall in based on that time. That will help us to maintain some continuity and again, make sure nothing drops off of the radar. Also for us to be able to better track movement of those things over the course of the years rather than doing it individually. We can kind of do it from a more planned approach. Alderman Shabazz.
Yes. Is there a deadline for the city to get their legislative agenda in, or there isn't?
If I could answer
go to the end of the year.
Good question, really timely question. However, because I would say really by the first week of January or so, they don't really convene until then. So we really have about a month, and maybe in the next week or two, just with correspondence and calls, we could narrow that down. I mean, I think the legislative delegation would concur, yes, we should get this done, but let's do it right and narrow it rather than to say, oh, we have to get it done in the next week. They're aware of what you're concerned about, and we'll communicate that to them. They're really probably not going to convene until right around, the ML King holiday, and then they'll probably adjourn, and then they'll meet again. So we have some time. Let's craft it. I think the mayor's idea about a 3-year agenda with 1-year increments, that's a great idea.
Thank you. I also will be meeting with the delegation within the next couple of days. So it is just an overview. I don't believe it's anything specific. And so they've asked me to come and to meet them. So I'll keep you informed about what that was all about. So Mr. Brown, thank you. I know you got into this process midstream. Ms. Carter, thank you. This has been a very, very difficult year with very little to deal with in terms of our funding streams, but thank you. Mr. Maxwell, thank you. Again, this was no easy feat to, get us again, and knowing what I know about other cities and what they're dealing with, their situations are much bleaker than ours. So I thank you all, and to Team Savannah, to those that are listening and watching, thank you for towing the line by being conservative and doing the things you need to do. You've done your part, and it's time now for the council to do ours. With that being said, we do have another workshop. A first hearing scheduled for December the 10th. Ms. Carter is available to you, so please feel free to reach out to her as you need to. And then, things that she discussed with Mr. Brown, then they'll come before council, and then council will have to decide one way or another. So again, I just appreciate all you, appreciate our communications and IT teams. Thank you all so much. And to our listening public, thank you so much as well for your diligence in working with us during this time. So that being said, it's exactly 6 o'clock. Good night.
I'm well spent. Happy birthday, Barbara and Xavier.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. I hope that everyone had a good, albeit different, Thanksgiving holiday weekend. As I've had time to think and reflect on the many things that I am grateful for, particularly this year. Some things immediately stood out to me. The first thing was that the 2020 hurricane season came to an end yesterday. The most active Atlantic hurricane season on record and the 7th costliest. In addition, it was the 5th consecutive above average Atlantic hurricane season from 2016 onward through the first extremely active season since 2017. There was a record-breaking 30 named storms and 12 landfalling storms in the continental United States. 12 named storms made landfall across 7 states this year: Bertha, Cristobal, Faye, Hannah, Isaias, Laura, Marco, Sally, Beta, Delta, Ada, and Zeta. Despite devastation around us and a Gulf Coast that was hammered this year, Savannah was not even seriously threatened, and I am grateful and thankful for that. Secondly, despite the many beloved and dear lives